This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol Live. It's a freaking Thursday. We've got big time breaking news as we're coming on. Two different stories. Right up my alley too. We got criminal justice and workers' rights. Boy meets Minnie. Good evening. Warlord, sacrificial MILF. Warlord, I will make sure you see your cat video before you go to bed, my sleeping beauty. Clinically, balls indeed. Good evening. If it's your first time here, I'm Justin Freakin. We cover the most absurd news, politics, and current events on the internet. And also, I have a morbid curiosity about debates, local debates. Well, as local as we can get, the televised Senate debates, congressional debates, different states. Tonight we're doing Pennsylvania. We got the Pennsylvania Senate debate between Democrat Bob Casey, the incumbent, and nutjob MAGA endorsed dipshit David McCormick. I pre-watched Cat. I'm sorry, Warlord. Soup, good evening. Somebody give Soup a shout out. Somebody give Soup a shout out for me. I might be too high for this shit. Possibly. I've been sitting here taking bong rips with Curiouser. Flash, good evening, my friend. Here is your meme of the day. I mean, you have to be a real low-life piece of shit to start hoarding toilet paper again. Guy, make me take another. I just said I've been sitting here taking bong rips with Curiouser. She might have broke her ankle, and she was very much sober and out of pot when she broke her ankle. I had to sit here with it. Bidet gang, rise up. Flash, here's the thing. I have not made the switch to a bidet, but every person I know who has switched to a bidet loves it. I've never had anybody tell me oh, I tried a bidet and I didn't like it. Not once. So I guess I need to get on this bidet train. One up, tip one back. Let's say we got breaking news. I don't know which to do first. Both are equally exciting. I guess we'll start with the port workers strike.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Carolyn Murray.
It's great to have you here.
Dilf, good evening.
We are following breaking news regarding the strike at ports across the Southeast and in the Gulf Coast. It could be, we are told, coming to an end.
News 2's Jordan Siopa joins us live in downtown Charleston, where the local members of the International Longshoremen's Association have been rallying all week. In Jordan, there is breaking news. What is the latest?
Yeah, Carolyn, Brendan, you said it. I'm here live on Morrison Drive, where local dock workers have been on strike all week long. But apparently there's been a major update just within the last few minutes. I want to bring in Kenneth Riley. He is the ILA International Vice
Kenneth, my man.
of Charleston. Thank you.
Lay it on us.
Tell me what you just heard.
We just heard that we reached a deal on the two most important things to us in these negotiations. Number one, we have the language that we need for to fight against automation.
Fucking go.
Fully automated terminals or semi-automated terminals on the east and the Gulf Coast of the United States over the next 6 years in the life of this new contract. The other thing that we were very proud of achieving in this 3 days of tough bargaining was the fact that we agreed on a wage package that was robust enough that would allow us to go back to work, and we will continue to negotiate on the rest of the items over the next 90 days, which will take us into January. So I guess the most exciting piece for all of us is that our men and women are going back to work. Those who are trying to say that we are selfish, we out here, and we don't care about our loved ones and our fellow Americans that are suffering as a result of the hurricane, which is not true. But we take those kind of criticisms. But to show you that we are committed to servicing America. We came up with a deal today with the assistance of the Biden administration, the Assistant Secretary of Labor, Pete Buttigieg, and everybody else who were instrumental in getting all the parties together. And we got a deal that's good for America. So we're excited about going back to work.
Warlord coming in here trying to give Trump credit for that deal.
As soon as we can get those ships in here and we can get orders on the board, we'll be back at work as early as tonight or maybe even tomorrow morning.
All right, so the strike is officially.
Last I heard, it was tomorrow morning. It's going to be Friday. Maybe it's tonight. Maybe that's at midnight.
At least for now.
Warlord taking the L in the chat.
Came together and they did the right thing.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. You heard it here. The strike is officially over. It lasted 3 days. The dock workers are going to head back to work as soon as those ships come in. We'll have more coming up tonight on News 2 at 10 and 11. Reporting live in Charleston, I'm Jordan Siopa. Count on 2.
DJ, good evening. Welcome in. Snicks, Avalon. So glad to see you guys. So that is the port workers strike, and they didn't tell the number. The number is fantastic. 65% wage increase over the next 6 years. 65% wage increase over the next 6 years. And allows them to continue to negotiate. The other good news tonight, 3 cops have been convicted. Charges stemming from the Tyre Nichols case. Both stories just in the last hour or two.
We have some developing news to report. A jury has reached a verdict in the trial of 3 former Memphis police officers in the death of Tyre Nichols in 2023. The 29-year-old Nichols was brutally beaten during a traffic stop last January.
Yeah, for those of you who don't remember this, who might have not been here with us for that, anonymously, good evening. That was one of the most brutal videos that we've ever watched. We sat here and watched 2 fucking hours of them beat the holy shit out of this dude. And I didn't get taken off Twitch for that. Just a few months later, we watched a shooting in Louisville that was blurred out, where the cops actually neutralized the shooter, and I gave the cops props. That was like one of the rare instances where I'm like, oh, the cops did a really good job with this one. And it got me banned from Twitch for a year. I don't know. Weird.
January, he died from his injuries just a few days later. Prosecutors say
we watched 2 hours of it because it was 4 different body cameras. I think it was about a 45-minute, hour or something long instance, and then we watched like 2 body cameras were 45, 50 minutes. Another 2 were like 20, 30 minutes of it. But it was over 2 hours, and that was the night I popped off on Facebook. We had like 1,000 and something people in here, but they were all watching on Facebook, and the commentary was hilarious.
Officers involved in the incident did not provide life-saving aid to Nichols. The 3 officers convicted Thursday were found guilty on counts of witness tampering, and 1 was found guilty of civil rights violations, meaning the other 2 were acquitted on that. Nima Rahmani joins me now. He's a former federal prosecutor and president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers. Thanks so much for joining me. What's your response to the verdict, and can you help us understand these charges or these verdicts?
Well, thanks for having me. A surprising verdict, split.
And I don't think he did anything.
It's
if I remember correctly, like he was fucking around with one of the cops' girlfriends or something like that. And they pulled him over, they were immediately aggressive, and he ran. Like, he ran out of the car. And they chased him down and beat the holy fuck out of him. And then he died a few days later. I might have some of the facts because I smoke a lot of pot. But I think that's how that went.
This verdict, the prosecution here, the Nichols family, has to be very disappointed in some of the not guilty verdicts, particularly on the most serious counts. And I'm happy to go through them, but we're talking about 4 counts. The most serious of which are depriving Tyre Nichols of his civil rights, as well as failure to provide medical aid. Those are counts that carry potential life sentences in federal prison. And all 3 former police officers were acquitted
Ooh.
those most serious counts, and I'm happy to go through them. We can start with Tadarius Bean. He was found not guilty of depriving Nichols of his civil rights, failure to provide aid, and conspiring to do the same. And conspiracy, of course, is an unlawful agreement with two or more people. He was only found guilty of the final count, which is obstruction. That's essentially the cover-up. And even though that carries a potential 20-year sentence in federal prison, it's certainly less serious than the other counts. And Justin Smith, the third officer who's shown there, he was found not guilty of those same three counts. Count one being the civil rights violation, count two being the failure to provide aid, count three being the conspiracy. He was also just convicted of one count, that fourth count of obstruction, the tampering, and so forth. Haley did receive more of a mixed verdict. He was found not guilty of the civil rights and failure to provide aid counts, but he was found guilty of a lesser included. That's a deprivation of rights, which did result
don't
in
see
bodily
how.
injury. He was convicted of a conspiracy and of the obstruction charges as well. So
Well, this is
he's
going to be a
certainly
happier
the
story.
most culpable of the three, according to jurors at least, but still very disappointing when you had two of the other officers that pleaded guilty, that testified against these three. We've all seen the video footage. I mean, one of the most disturbing videos I have ever seen, but apparently the jurors, they bought the defense argument that police officers were dealing with someone that was resisting, that was under the influence of drugs, that they didn't receive the proper training. I'm not saying I agree with the defense's argument, but clearly it did resonate with some of the jurors, and frankly, it just goes to show how difficult it is to convict police officers in this country.
Help me understand that idea that
bullshit it is.
Pled guilty. So there were two. Did they plead to a charge that then these officers ended up being acquitted of?
Yes, and we're talking about officers who are still facing state charges as well. So obviously there's Ben Crump. You have the family's attorney. I'm sure they're going to be very disappointed with this verdict. But
it's been a long journey for our family.
And in terms of an appeal, I mean that would seem to be a possibility. Do you think there's any grounds on that, or do you does it kind of go back to your? Go ahead.
Yeah, the government, it's very difficult for them to appeal a not guilty verdict. There's very few circumstances where they can do that. Once the jury has spoken against the government, in this case against the prosecution, they're stuck with that verdict. Now, because of the dual sovereign doctrine, these officers may still face justice in state court. We've seen that in other racially motivated cases. Of course, the victim here was African American, so were the officers, but we've seen cases like that, Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery's killers in Georgia as well. So occasionally the feds and state prosecutors will prosecute cases simultaneously. It doesn't violate double jeopardy because they're dual sovereign. So I think maybe these officers will really face the justice that they deserve in state court, where they are facing murder charges.
On that civil rights
Remember, we're watching the
charge,
Pennsylvania Senate debate in about 10 minutes.
That the officers were acquitted so it means the prosecution didn't meet that standard. But in terms of helping us understand why they would have been acquitted, what would the
getting some cats in less than 10 minutes?
Necessary
How about that?
to get a conviction, and why do you think they didn't?
Well, it has to be a violation of a clearly established constitutional right. So in this case, it would be Nichols's right to
Sounds about right anonymously.
Excessive force. And the question here was this someone who was fleeing? Was this someone who was resisting arrest? Did the officers go outside their training? And there was a lot of discussion of this Scorpion unit there in Memphis, and did the officers act as
the
a vigilante
Scorpion
or a
unit
gang? And so I think that's something that whether it was their training or lack thereof, that must have resonated with the jurors, because they apparently didn't find, with at least to two of these officers, that there was any constitutional violation whatsoever, and it was just covering up after the fact. So it is a high burden to prove a violation.
Well, then what are they covering up?
That jurors love police officers in this country, and ultimately prosecutors weren't able to get there.
If you're convicted of covering up, or at least partially covering up, isn't implicit in a cover-up?
Yes, Pilly.
You're guilty of doing something for which you must take actions to cover up? And shouldn't that make it easier for a prosecutor?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Dickerson.
Well, that's why I'm smiling, right? We often say the cover-up is worse than the crime. And, you know, I've been prosecuting and handling cases for more than 20 years now. And sometimes you don't really understand these jury verdicts, especially when there's a split verdict. You know, how do jurors believe that there was no constitutional violation, but the officers covered something up? And apparently that's what they came down to here. Now, I don't know. Sometimes in that jury deliberation room, there's horse trading going on. Maybe there's folks that aren't willing to convict the police officers. Because let's not forget, in this country, you need a unanimous verdict beyond a reasonable doubt if you're the prosecution. Even if you have one holdout juror, that's going to result in a mistrial and a do-over. We have to start over. So sometimes when there's more serious counts, you'll see jurors agree to do not guilty, return not guilty verdicts on the more serious counts and convict on the lesser counts. So maybe that's what happened here. But I agree with you. Logically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you're saying there's no constitutional violation, but they covered something up.
Is there any feeling in your mind that maybe that this was a stronger case than it was presented by the prosecutors? In other words, you've mentioned the fact that juries tend to support.
I mean, we watched it on fucking video.
Police officers in these kinds of instances. Could there be fault found in the prosecution in the way they carried out the case?
It's tough to criticize the prosecution in a case where there's so much video evidence. You know, here you have officers that
yes
and remove their body cams, but notwithstanding that, there's that poll camera. And, you know, going back to the history of, you know, police brutality in this country, you know, I grew up and I remember Rodney King was one of the few times that, you know, police
good evening.
were prosecuted. Of course, in that case, they were acquitted as well by the state. They were charged by the feds. And even only then, some of those officers were convicted. Others were acquitted. And, you know, we've seen more and more, whether it's, you know, George Floyd, the influence of video and how it's really changed the game in terms of prosecutions, and how for many, many years in this country, it was almost impossible to convict.
We watched them do exactly what they were charged with.
Charges like manslaughter. But what I thought in this case, because there was so much video evidence, both in terms of the poll camera, in terms of the police officers, those that arrived, I thought this would be a relatively straightforward case for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and jurors would return a pretty quick guilty verdict. But apparently, I and other talking heads and legal analysts were wrong.
Clearly. Goddamn. Oh, sorry that was not as pleasant as it could have been. Here are cats sitting in dogs' beds.
La pizza.
No, we're not going off the air. Usually the cat videos are last. May. That's what Curiouser calls Maynard. That looks like Maynard. Medius.
Why are you standing in the kitty bed? Is it because the kitty? Is that it?
Oh, that's great. Okay, I didn't watch this far, Warlord. Just lay with the kitty.
So cute.
The fat cat. Oh, see, the kitty wanted to lay with the puppy. Oh, that's sweet. Yes.
La pizza.
It got progressively sweeter as it went along. We're about 5 minutes away from the Pennsylvania Senate debate. Democrat Bob Casey, the Democratic incumbent. I just said that was redundant, wasn't it? The Democratic incumbent, Bob Casey.
Why are you standing in the kitty bed? Is it because the kitty?
Gonna be debating Republican dumbass challenger David McCormick. I hope it's as much fun as Hung Cow from last night. We watched 3 debates last night.
So cute.
Not exactly the best. Hung Cow was good, Prometheus. He said some stupid shit. We don't want no drag queens recruiting in the military. We want alpha males that'll rip their guts out, eat them, and ask for seconds.
Yeah, bien.
Oh, math check. So he said 256. I thought he said 100. That's why me checking his math didn't make the cut on the YouTube video. Pull up a calculator here. So he said 250. He said Tim Kaine passed 256. No, 3 of 256 bills proposed. He said that's a 99% failure rate. 256 divided by 3 equals 85%. It was still wrong, but I'm sad I misheard it because that would have been a good clip. Hung Cow's math was wrong. I'm still wrong? I just did the calculator. I'm not good at math, so I mean, it's possible, but I thought I just did the basic math right.
And a third chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning.
I have no clue what you guys are saying. I'm left-brained? Is that what they call it? The creative people. I was really good at English. I sat in the front of the class in government, philosophy, all the fun shit like that. In math, I sat at the back of the class. I had to take remedial math in college. I had to take fucking algebra 1 and 2 or whatever the fuck it was. The high school level math classes before I could actually take the probability and statistics. That was the only math class I was required to take for my degree, probability and statistics. And to be honest with you, if I wasn't taking a philosophy class called Science in the Modern World, which was the exact same fucking thing, just coming at it from different perspectives, like I probably wouldn't have passed probability and statistics, to be honest with you. I know the times table because there was like a little song, and I can't sing the whole song, but whenever I get to like all the 7 times 7 is 49. Like it's in the song. That was one of the hard ones for me, was 7 times 7. Well, apparently I still can't even calculate it right. We're about 2 minutes from the Pennsylvania Senate debate. I'm gonna take a little potty break. I'll be right back. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN.
All we're establishing is this guy's wicked, sick aesthetic.
Not high enough for this shit.
I guess I gotta thank Matt Walsh for introducing me to JustinFREAKIN.
Hey there, y'all. We're about to get stupid, locked into what that news beat doing. Fu Manchu and a slick bandana, colder than ice, smoother than Santana. Audio, video, chat and calls. Right-wing nut jobs haunt the halls. What you wanna watch? Hey, what you think? And there's only one choice. It's JustinFREAKIN.
The guy's, he's a formidable voice in the call.
Light one up and tip one back. It's a right to be high. Let's grab a snack. It's fucking news, quit panic, attack, and play your cards right and get a titty slap. Jump in Discords, have some fun. The man will talk to everyone. Get high and try to debate. When shit pops up, chat thinks it's great. What do you think you're doing? Join the troll patrol. Whatever discourse is brewing, he gives it that southern drawl.
So let's go ahead and bring in Justin. Hey Justin, how's it going, brother?
First of all, I want to say you're poser South. I'm in Alabama. I'm the real South.
Okay, all right. So why don't you tell us what it takes to be a man?
Well, I don't know. I'm in Alabama and I'll fuck a man in a dress. Why won't you fuck a man in a dress? Are you that insecure that you won't fuck a man in a dress?
That's fantastic. So you're okay with that, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Good.
Right-wingers are morons.
Like one it and hit one back on one more clip where we hit the set an alert when that shit goes live. Social fucking support and hit subscribe. Light one up and take a hit. He does no harm, but it takes no shit. He's the last one standing when the ship is sinking. Let's take another rip for JustinFREAKIN.
Light one up, tip one back. I'm JustinFREAKIN.
Not high enough for this shit.
I'll try not to wear that out, but it is so fucking good. Girl of the Gray, good evening. T-minus. Libertad, welcome in. We're getting ready to do the Pennsylvania Senate debate between Democrat Bob Casey, Republican David McCormick. Casey is the incumbent in this race. M. Lord, Zong, good evening. They're still on commercial break. Getting ready to fire up here in just a second. Here we go. Pennsylvania U.S. Senate debate.
Association.
It's debate night in Pennsylvania.
Debate night on the Troll Patrol.
For the very first time, you will hear from the two candidates fighting for your vote. Senator Bob Casey.
He should go to the grocery store in Pennsylvania. I don't know what it's like in Connecticut. He spends most of his time in Connecticut. He lives up there.
And challenger Dave McCormick.
He only pokes his head out of his hole once every 6 years. And that's what's happening right now with Punxsutawney Bob.
It's a critical seat in a battleground state that could decide control of the Senate.
It is a critical seat, but I think Bob Casey is safe.
To the voters will make all the difference.
I'm voting for integrity. Cheaper grocery bills.
Prices that come down.
Our economy.
Taxes and abortion.
Tonight, you get to decide which candidate will earn your trust. Which one shares your value?
I love last night with the North Dakota debate. More people were watching me watch the North Dakota debate.
Live from
we were watching the North Dakota debate stream.
This.
They had 9 viewers.
U.S. Senate debate. Good evening from the nation's capital. I'm your host, Leland Vittert from News Nation.
Shut up, Leland.
And the stakes are high.
Leland Vittert?
For the Keystone State, but for the country.
I hate your name.
I
want to punch you in the face just because your fucking name.
Debate is Dennis Owens, political anchor and reporter from WHT.
Oh, thank you, Girl of the Gray.
Casting tonight's debate across the country on News Nation, as well as on stations that reach all 67 Pennsylvania counties, from Philadelphia to Harrisburg to Erie. Before we get to the questions, let's review the debate rules. Mr. Casey, Mr. McCormick, you will have 60 seconds to answer a question. There's a follow-up question. You will get 30 seconds.
Again, I will lay out as much as possible.
Also gets 30 seconds. Time for answers will be displayed by a digital clock that will count down to 0, and Dennis will move things
to actually be able to enjoy the debate.
Each candidate will also have 90 seconds for a closing statement. Now, live from the ABC.
You light one up, tip one back.
It's debate night in Pennsylvania.
Thanks so much, Leland. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to have the two candidates in our studio tonight for the next hour talking about the topics important to Pennsylvania voters. And we encourage you, if you're watching tonight, to share your thoughts on X using the hashtag PA Senate Debate. And importantly, it is there that you will find all of the sources that we used in developing tonight's questions.
I should share the stream to that, shouldn't I?
Welcome the candidates. First, Republican Dave McCormick, former hedge fund CEO, West Point graduate, Army veteran, whose father was the first chancellor of the Pennsylvania state system of higher education. Next, Democrat Bob Casey, a 3-term U.S. Senate incumbent, former state auditor general, and treasurer, whose father was a former governor. Gentlemen, we thank you very much for being with us tonight. Good luck, and with that, let's get started. Current headlines lead us to begin with the Middle East. This week, Iran launched nearly 200 missiles at Israel after Israel put troops in Lebanon and killed Hezbollah leadership, all as we approach the 1-year anniversary of the Hamas attack. You have both expressed support for Israel. Mr. Casey, we're going to begin with you. Are you willing to put American troops on the ground in the current conflict? You have 60 seconds.
Hey, Dennis, I want to thank you and ABC 27 for this debate, and I also want to wish Happy New Year to all of our friends across.
I think Virginia started with foreign policy as well.
This is a difficult time for the Israeli people. Just almost a year ago to the day, 1,200 Israelis were murdered by a terrorist organization, Hamas. Murdered in cold blood. Young people, older Israelis, killed by a terrorist organization. We've got to continue to support Israel's efforts to take on and defeat Hamas, and also to take on other threats in the region, including the threat posed by Hezbollah and the Iranians. I think that now that Iran has launched missiles against the Israeli people, we've got to stand with Israel and fight for them. Now, in terms of putting our troops on the ground, we've got to back up Israel and make sure that Israel has the resources it needs to fight against the Iranians.
But does that involve troops on the ground at the moment?
Well, not unless we have a declaration of war and a debate in the United States Senate and the House.
I do have a follow-up for you. Is there a red line Israel can cross to lose your support? You have 30 seconds.
No, Dennis, look, I've been a strong supporter of Israel every year I've been in the United States Senate, over and over again. That's why pro-Israel organizations across the country support me. They know my record, and I think they also know that my opponent's record is one of lifting up adversaries. As a hedge fund manager, he was managing money for President Xi of China, investing in China, increasing those investments by 108,000%, lifting up our adversaries instead of supporting America.
Well, let's turn to your opponent. Mr. McCormick, are you willing, let's start first, are you willing to put American troops on the ground in this current conflict? You have 60 seconds.
We need to stand with Israel. Israel's in the fight for its life. My wife and I went to Israel in January. We saw firsthand the brutality that Hamas brought to the Jewish people. We have a fight here at home and a fight abroad. We need to stand. And the original sin was the funding of Iran that Senator Casey was the deciding vote. Gave Iran $100 billion of sanctioned money that's been used to underwrite terrorism. Hamas, Hezbollah, that's where all these missiles are coming from. And now that we're in a fight, now that Israel's in a fight for its life, it's because of that weakness, that encouragement, that lack of strength and standing up against Iran and standing up against all its proxies in the region. So we need to stand with, I wouldn't send troops in on the ground right now. We need to stand, but what President Biden done, and I haven't heard Senator Casey speak out on this, is he's started to put red lines in place on what Israel should and should not do. We need to stand steadfastly with Israel. Senator Casey's been a weak voice.
Follow up for you, though. Is there a red line Israel could cross to lose your support? You have 30 seconds.
Not as long as Israel's fighting for its life. It's the closest ally in the Middle East. It's the closest ally, one of the closest in the world. The problem is that we haven't been standing enough with Israel. Now, we also have a fight at home against anti-Semitism, and this is also a place where I think Senator Casey's been weak. He's endorsed Summer Lee, an avowed anti-Semite. He's got this anti-Semitism bill, which he sponsored. It's a good bill.
Oh, fuck you.
Get a vote on the Senate floor, and this is a career politician. Says one thing, doesn't want to irritate or upset the radical elements of his party that are anti-Semites. We got to have strength, moral courage to stand up against Iran and anti-Semites at home.
Per the agreed-to rules of this debate, you will each get rebuttals on each.
Jason Society is here, so light one up, tip one back.
Well, when it comes to the question of moral clarity, here's what my opponent did. With his own money, he invested his own money, millions of dollars, in a website that platforms hate, Holocaust denial, and anti-Semitism. That's his money, and he's making money off of that. At least $100,000 he's made off of that investment. The second thing he did when he's running the biggest hedge fund in the world in Connecticut is to invest in a Chinese weapons manufacturer that had ties to Iran. Those weapons made their way to Hamas. So who's supporting Israel?
And your time is up there. Mr. McCormick, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, you're going to hear throughout this. You've heard this campaign. When you don't have a record to run on, as Senator Casey does not, you attack your opponent. His voice is primarily attacking me. For your viewers tonight, I have a website that's been established today. It's just been launched, CaseyLies.com. You can go and see the actual facts by third-party sources of all the things he's saying. There will be lies throughout, but you should ask yourself, why is a senator with an 18-year track record, who should be able to run on his record, running his entire campaign with a negative set of attacks on me, most of them lies,
Thank you. Your time
Thank
is
you.
up. Turning to the issue of immigration, we're going to begin with you, actually. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, at least 10 million migrants have crossed the border since 2021. Mr. McCormick, Donald Trump, stated if he's president, he wants to deport all those who crossed illegally. Do you support those mass deportations? And if so, how would the U.S. go about doing that? You have 60 seconds.
The border crisis is the direct result of the weakness of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and Bob Casey supported them every step of the way. What chutzpah to run an ad on how tough he is on the border when he voted against funding for the Border Patrol. He ran an ad in front of the wall that he voted against. He voted for sanctuary cities. He voted for federal benefits for illegal immigrants. And the fentanyl crisis that's come across our border is the direct result of the weakness of Bob Casey not standing up to these terrible cartels. So this man has very little that he can say with credibility on the border. We have an enormous crisis. We learned just recently that 25,000 convicted murderers and rapists have come across the border. Absolutely, we need to send them home. We need to deport first and foremost those convicted criminals. We have hundreds of people that are on a terrorist watch list. We have made Americans less secure. We've made our country less secure. We made Pennsylvania less secure because of the weakness of Bob Casey and the Democrats on this issue. I will be strong on this issue on day one.
15-second clarification. How would the U.S. go about doing that?
Well, that's the problem. I went to the board. I've been to the board twice. And Senator, you speak a lot about the board. I suggest you go. I've been there more times than the senator and the borders are. And what you see is these people come across the border, and in 2 days, they are let loose on our economy. So it's going to be very hard to track them down. It's going to be an enormous logistical challenge, but we have to do it to break the incentives of people coming across our border.
Thank you. I want to turn to Mr. Casey. In the past 6 months, President Biden has introduced policies similar to Donald Trump's that have reduced border crossings. Do you support the continuation of the former president's policies? You have 60 seconds.
Absolutely support those policies, and those numbers are coming way down. But here's the problem, Dennis. We don't have the resources at the border that we need. If we want real border security, we've got to invest in it. We've got to invest in hiring thousands more Border Patrol. That's in the bill that I voted for twice this year. The bill that my opponent opposes because the leader of his party said don't support it because it might help us politically not to have the problem solved. That same bill is supported by the Border Patrol Union. So I guess Mr. McCormick knows more about border security than the Border Patrol. I don't think so. That bill also would provide the investment we need in the technology to find fentanyl, to screen fentanyl. This is a vehicle problem coming across the border, often driven by American citizens, vehicles packed with fentanyl. We cannot allow that to continue. My opponent, unfortunately, as a hedge fund CEO, invested millions of dollars in the largest producer of fentanyl.
Mr. McCormick, 30-second rebuttal on immigration.
Well, Senator Casey is rich with his strength on the border when he's time and again voted against the measures that are necessary to get our border secure. He said very clearly when President Trump was president, we don't need a wall for border security. The fentanyl crisis, I sat with 4 fentanyl families very recently in my home in Pittsburgh.
Fentanyl families?
Crisis. It's gotten out of control under Senator Casey, and this is something that we need leadership to go across the border and take on those cartels. Senator Casey's shown none of that leadership. He showed up now very recently as a strong advocate for the border. He hasn't even been there.
Thank you. Mr. Casey, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Talking about leadership, leadership would be a candidate, a Republican candidate for the United States Senate, talking a lot about border security. Leadership would be taking on the leader of your own party and anyone else and supporting the bill. That would be leadership. And that would be strength, not weakness, in the face of that pressure. The problem we have at the border is one where is one of a lack of investment in the strategies we know that work. Hiring more Border Patrol would help. He doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to take on the leader of his party. And I also remind you, when he was running a hedge fund, he invested in the largest producer of fentanyl in China.
Thank you. I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Casey. The Blair County Sheriff blames you for the fentanyl death of his son, saying you have not done enough to secure the border. What? You have 30 seconds.
Look, Dennis, I've met so many families across the state, and whether it's a sheriff in Blair County or a mom in Alabama.
Bob Casey is a murderer.
Talked about her daughter Brianna. This is an awful tragedy for those families. That's why we need to invest in the strategies that we know work. He won't do that because he's weak in the face of the political pressure from his own party. We can solve this problem by investing in the technology. hiring thousands more Border Patrol so we can inspect every single vehicle coming across the border for fentanyl.
Thank you. I have a follow-up for you, Mr. McCormick. There is reporting that says, as CEO of Bridgewater, you oversaw investments in a Chinese company that produced fentanyl. Can you explain those investments? 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, it's laughable that he talks about independence. This is a man who's voted 99% of the time with Biden and Harris. This is a man who was recently asked on CNN, what do you disagree with?
Come on, man.
With Vice President Harris. He couldn't think of a single thing. I looked at that border bill. It's a bad bill. It's not a border security bill. It's an amnesty bill. I've looked at it compared to every other country in the world. It was a bad bill and I made my own choice. And I've shown myself to be independent from President Trump and anybody else. I am my own man. On fentanyl, the great irony of this is we invested at Bridgewater in many companies that were legally approved by the United States government. Senator Casey, in the ultimate sign of hypocrisy, invested personally in the very same company that he's referring to.
Okay, and I want to let you respond to that, sir. You have 15 seconds.
Not true, Dennis, and that was fact-checked. Look,
Mr. McCormick, you're right.
Mr. McCormick made a decision as a hedge fund CEO, the largest hedge fund in the world, when he was living in Connecticut, to invest in that company. He made that decision. The allegation he made against me was fact-checked, and it was shown to be a false charge.
Okay, quick.
Go to CaseyLies.com and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette editorial, which says what nonsense Bob Casey speaks of when he talks about his strength on fentanyl.
We need to move to the next topic. It's an
thank you.
important one. You'll both agree. Every poll has shown
contentious.
the economy is the #1 issue for Pennsylvania voters.
You think this would have been the first question?
Just too high. Mr. Casey, we're going to begin with you. You have led efforts to target companies for so-called greedflation.
Fucking Pennsylvania, we start off with Israel and fucking
of where price controls
the border
to benefit consumers and not hurt businesses. 60 seconds.
First of all, Dennis, prices are too high, especially when you go to the grocery store to buy food or household items. Items that people need every week, or at least every other week. And these big conglomerates, these big corporations, rig those prices and jack them up to levels we've never seen, all while they were getting record profits. That's greedflation. We can take it on by passing a price gouging bill to go after those companies, hold them accountable. I'll argue with your premise. It's not price controls. It's investigating companies that are engaged in price gouging. You have to go into court and prove it, and they can rebut the arguments you make. That has to be proven. Here's the difference, though. I'm taking on this corporate greed. I want to pass a price gouging bill, and I want to roll back those big corporate tax breaks. He's defending them. Over and over again, he's defended these big corporations and said we shouldn't have price gouging legislation because he wants to support their corporate tax breaks. So he's perfectly fine with having price gouging. I want to take them on and hold them accountable.
Okay, thank you. And I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Casey. You are also targeting shrinkflation, companies charging the same for less product. We are 30 miles away from the snack food capital of the world. Have you investigated any of these Pennsylvania companies for shrinkflation? You have 30 seconds.
Oh, Hershey.
Well, I don't necessarily conduct investigations. We did a report on shrinkflation, which covered a lot of companies around the country. And if that's happening with regard to a Pennsylvania company or any other company around the country, they should be held accountable. When they take a product, shrink the contents of the product or the what's in a bag, and don't shrink the price, that's deceptive. That's ripping people off. People know this, Dennis. They go to the grocery store and they see it. It may not be in grocery stores in Connecticut, but it's happening here in Pennsylvania.
Should those Pennsylvania companies expect investigations?
Well, if we can pass legislation to have the same power at the federal level that attorneys general around the country have, yes, to hold those companies accountable. We should do that. Okay. He won't do that. He's against that. He doesn't want to hold them accountable. He thinks that they should just be able to engage in shrinkflation or price gouging. He doesn't want to hold them accountable.
I do want to turn to Mr. McCormick. If Donald Trump were to win, one of your first votes...
I need an opportunity to respond to that, Dennis.
Take 15 seconds.
Listen, when you're spent your entire life in public service, elected office, 30 years, you're like a hammer looking for a nail. The cause of inflation is the policies, the out-of-control spending of Biden, Harris, and Casey. Bob Casey voted 100% of the time for that $5 trillion of new spending. The experts at the time, Larry Summers, the San Francisco Fed, said this would create inflation. This has been tried in America.
You are going to have a rebuttal, so we'll let you get into that. But I do have a question I want to ask you.
Yes, sir, please.
If Donald Trump were to win, one of your first votes as senator would likely be extending expiring tax cuts. Critics say those tax cuts mostly benefit corporations and the wealthy. How would you vote on extending tax cuts, and why? You have 60 seconds.
I would be in favor of extending the Trump tax cuts. They are middle-class tax cuts as well. For a family that makes $50,000 a year, it's a $2,500 tax increase that would happen under Bob Casey. There's already been a 20% tax increase under Bob Casey because inflation is stealing money out of the pockets of working families. I would also, in that extension, want to add additional dollars for a child tax credit. I'd want to add money for fertility tax credit, IVF tax credit, which I proposed. But yes, I would extend those tax cuts, and the corporate tax cuts are necessary to ensure that America continues to be competitive. Bob Casey doesn't understand how the economy works. That's why he's trying to do all this economic voodoo stuff with price controls.
Let's further talk economy. A follow-up for you, Mr. McCormick. The national debt is at $35 trillion, just went past that this week and growing. Congressional Budget Office projects that tax cuts would add trillions more to the debt. How do you justify increasing that debt by extending those tax cuts? You have 30 seconds.
Well, listen, if you look at spending over the last 20 years, Republicans and Democrats alike have spent too much. Under Biden, Harris, and Casey, it's a hockey stick. $5 trillion of new spending. As I said, the experts said at the time, Bob Casey confidently said, no, this isn't going to cause inflation. It's caused record high inflation. So that's the main cause of inflation, and that's what's driven the debt. Now, we have a problem. When you have $1 trillion of interest payments, it's bigger than your defense budget, we have a problem. The first thing we need to do is roll back all these ridiculous subsidies for EV buses and charging stations. And billions that have gone into solar.
Your time is up.
This is what the economy's happened under Biden, Harris,
Thank
and
you,
Casey.
sir. Mr. Casey, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, you just heard his plan, Dennis. His plan is to double down on a debt explosion. We already had a debt explosion of $2 trillion under the 2017 bill. Now he wants to double down on that. Support a bill in 2025 will jack up the debt by $4 trillion at least. Some people believe it's higher than that. That's his plan. You know what happens when that plan goes into effect? Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are on the chopping block. We cannot allow that to happen. If we're going to have tax reform in 2025, it has to be a cut for the middle class.
Mr. McCormick, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, listen, the reason that Social Security and Medicare and the debt is such a spiraling out of control thing is because of the spending of Biden, Harris, and Casey. And Kamala Harris just gave her new speech, her new economic policy, $2 trillion of more spending and price controls that Bob Casey's promoting. Listen, as a senator, and Casey's lied about this as he lies about most things, I would support and stand by Social Security, stand by Medicare. I wouldn't accept any changes to those programs. And Senator Casey's lying if he says anything to the contrary.
Moving now to the topic of abortion. Mr. McCormick, during our 2022 primary debate in this very studio, you said you believe in only rare exceptions for abortion when the life of a mother is in danger. However, you now say you support additional exceptions. Tonight, can you clarify where exactly you stand on those exceptions? You have 60 seconds.
Yes, listen, this is an extremely polarizing issue. As you know, I have 6 daughters, so this is something we spend time talking about. I believe this should be a state's right. I believe states should decide. Pennsylvania has a law. It's been supported by Democrats and Republicans, like it was signed into law by the senator's father, Governor Casey. I support the 3 exceptions. I would not favor an abortion ban of any kind, legislation to support a national abortion ban. Senator Casey has voted for legislation. There's no senator in the Senate that's flip-flopped more on this issue than Senator Casey. Senator Casey has signed legislation that would allow abortions up until the due date and has government funding supporting them. And the thing that I said in that debate, I did say, and I'd also said before that and after that I was in favor of the 3 exceptions. You can find that on CaseyLies.com, my video recordings of my position. So my position hasn't changed, and Senator Casey's position has changed, and Senator Casey is lying about this because he wants to polarize this issue. It's a tough issue.
We have a follow-up for you on this, Mr. McCormick. You've said you do not support a national abortion ban, but are you concerned that women in other states don't have the same rights as women in Pennsylvania? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I'd say 2 things on this. I think it's important that voters decide. The voters in these different states have to decide what's best for them. They have different preferences, different desires. So that's why I say states' rights. In addition to that, I think we should talk more expansively about reproductive rights. And so one of the things I proposed is an IVF tax credit. When I was a CEO, I gave IVF to every single employee. It's hugely expensive. Right now, only wealthy people can afford fertility treatment.
So he means access.
Much more accessible. We need to make contraception widely acceptable. Senator Casey is banging this drum, and he's the guy that
sperm into people's eggs.
Mr. Casey, thank you. You were first elected to the Senate as a pro-life Democrat, but in 2022, after Roe was overturned, you voted to protect abortion rights. What do you say tonight to voters who supported you based on that pro-life position? You have 60 seconds.
Dennis, in 2022, when the Supreme Court overturned a 49-year right, overturned Roe v. Wade, I think everyone had to make a decision, including senators. I made a decision to support the Women's Health Protection Act. I don't support Republican efforts to ban abortion across the country. But just remember what Mr. McCormick just said. He talked about his position on abortion, but it's different than it was just 2 years ago when you asked that question. Your question was very specific. What exceptions do you support? And he said life of the mother, not an exception for rape, not an exception for incest. So his words now are a big change. But when the decision was made to overturn Roe, his reaction was that decision made him, quote, very, very happy, unquote. So that's where he's been on this issue. And when you talk about bans in other states, a woman in Florida hemorrhaging and had to go on a ventilator before her life was saved. I don't think we want to see that in Pennsylvania.
I have a follow-up for you on that, however, Mr. Casey. Should there be any restrictions on abortion? 30 seconds.
Dennis, I support Roe v. Wade. And Roe v. Wade was the consensus across the country. It would allow reasonable restrictions. That's what I support.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick, a rebuttal on abortion. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, do you see that? So no person in the Senate has changed. Senator Casey said he wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade. Senator Casey was only for one exception, which was life in the mud. Now Senator Casey is saying this. He also just signed legislation that allowed abortions up into the 9th month. So different than what he just said. And he supports government funding for them. So I'm not going to take any preaching from Senator Casey on my position on abortion. And it's something that we need to get past and let people in all these states decide what's best for them.
Mr. Casey, you have a rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Yeah, Dennis, we've heard a couple of times tonight about telling lies. Look, probably the biggest lie told in this whole election, that probably most Pennsylvanians have never heard a bigger lie, was the lie when my opponent said he lived in Pennsylvania when he was living in Connecticut. The Associated Press on August the 14th, 2023, did a story that proved that he was living in Connecticut after telling people all throughout 2022, all throughout 22 and 23, that he lived in Pennsylvania. He lied about that.
I have a follow-up for you, but first I want you to respond 15 seconds to the residency question, which has plagued your campaign.
I'm going to need a little more than 15 seconds,
Take
given
30.
what he said. So,
you got 30.
Listen, I'm a 7th-generation Pennsylvanian. I grew up in Bloomsburg, was born in Washington County. I went away to West Point, served in the military for 9 years, came back to Pittsburgh, created 1,000 jobs, or helped create 1,000 jobs as one of many people in a team. And so listen, I've spent the majority of my life in Pennsylvania. I did run a firm in Connecticut. When I said I was living in Pennsylvania, I was. Senator Casey is once again lying. So the fact that he got some reporter at the Associated Press to validate his lies or reinforce his lies does not mean it's true. And so people need to know that Senator Casey's lying. And why is he lying? Because he doesn't have a track record as a United States Senator to run on after 18 years.
Thank you. I want to give you 30 seconds to respond to that, sir.
Well, he told a lie, and I think most people know that now.
Okay.
He also lied about being a farmer. He said that while he was a candidate. He's not a farmer. He's a hedge fund CEO, or at least used to run a hedge fund. By the way, he's still benefiting from that hedge fund. He still benefits a lot from that hedge fund.
Okay. Mr. Casey, we're going to turn to you. Last week, Vice President Kamala Harris said she would support ending the filibuster to codify Roe v. Wade. Do you agree with lowering the threshold from 60 to 51 votes in the Senate to legalize abortion nationwide? 60 seconds.
Dennis, I've been on record for a good while now supporting lowering that threshold to 51 for a whole variety of matters and issues that come before the Senate. Right now, the filibuster acts as a block to make progress on background checks for common sense gun legislation to make sure that we have background checks in place, supported by 85% of the American people. That's blocked because of the filibuster. Women's rights are blocked. Voting rights is blocked. Workers' rights, protecting workers' rights to join a union. All of that is blocked by the filibuster. So I would support it, and my opponent will continue to support the blocking of this, using this arcane rule to block progress, really as an excuse to not vote on major issues of the day. I think when people elect you to public office and elect a president and a Senate, we should vote on big issues and fulfill the wishes and the aspirations of those who voted for us.
Mr. McCormick, you have a question. You've said you do not support ending the filibuster.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't a simple majority in the Senate be enough to move legislation forward? You have 60 seconds.
Be very afraid. So I would support not eliminating the filibuster regardless of the party in the majority.
Threatening
Imagine
us.
a world where Kamala Harris and Bob Casey is in the majority in the Senate. You heard her speak. She wants to ban fracking. She wants to have mandatory buybacks of your guns. She wants to give citizenship to illegal immigrants. Bob Casey's a sure vote. He is a 99% vote for Biden-Harris. He'll be a 99% vote for Harris-Walz. That is what you're dealing with, a career politician who is too weak and too liberal to stand up against his own party. And so that's why I would vote against it. We shouldn't have extremes on either side. The Senate was meant to be the place where you would bring wisdom and reserve. And if Senator Casey is in the majority and Kamala Harris is president, there will be a set of policies that are completely out of step with Pennsylvania, completely out of step with the country, and it will be irreversible. That's why I'm opposed to it.
Mr. Casey, rebuttal on filibuster. You have 30 seconds.
Well, Dennis, look, this is a rule that should be changed. I think most Americans believe that progress should not be blocked on basic issues that people want us to make progress on. But look, he's not going to support it because he doesn't want us to make progress on those issues. He doesn't support the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis legislation. He doesn't support the Women's Health Protection Act. He doesn't support legislation to protect unions. And he also doesn't want us to talk about his own record as a hedge fund CEO, where he made a lot of money investing in China and hurt Pennsylvania doing it.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, listen, I mean, we've talked about my business career. Bob Casey's not only anti-business, he's anti-success. I ran one of the great firms in the world. The funny thing about it is it was very successful. It invested about 3% of its investments in China, invested around the world. It was working for teachers, firemen, and policemen. But here's the best part of this whole thing. This is the career politician, Bob Casey. When he was the treasurer, he sat on the board of the teachers' pension plan right here in Pennsylvania, and he approved Bridgewater. He said it was a great firm. He approved all these investing strategies. So now that he's running against me, Bob Casey is using this as a way to come after me. He's anti-business, he's anti-success, and he's a liar.
I want to give you 15 seconds to respond to that.
Yeah, Dennis, let's fill in the blanks about what that hedge fund did in China. Invested in China's military, in companies that made bombers and missiles and aircraft carriers to help China. Invested, as I said, in China's largest producer of fentanyl. Invested in Chinese oil companies and steel companies while he was betting against American steel companies.
I appreciate it. Look, you're going to have 90-second closing statement. We've got to move to another topic, and it's a big one.
Can I get 15 seconds
Go
on
ahead.
this? Just very quickly. Bob Casey approved a $31 million investment in China Mobile when he was the treasurer. He's taken money, lobbyist money from a Chinese drone company. This is the kind of career politician lying.
And I don't want this to be a tennis match, but now I got to give you 15 seconds to respond to that.
We're supposed to believe this person who lied to the people of our state about where he lives? How does someone tell a lie to the people of the state he seeks to represent about where he lives?
Gentlemen, we need to move to the next topic. It's a big one you'll want to talk about. Fracking, natural gas.
He's a liar. No, you're a liar.
Pennsylvania's economy. We're going to begin with you, Mr. McCormick. How do you plan to balance supporting the industries while also protecting the environment? You have 60 seconds.
Listen, what the Democrats have done and Bob Casey's voted for has been the most idiotic energy policy I've ever seen. So first of all, we constrained our natural resources, particularly fracking around the world in Pennsylvania. You don't have to ban fracking to ban fracking. All the things he's voted for and supports bans fracking. And essentially what's happened is we've lost our ability to be energy dominant. We've hurt ourselves in terms of creating these great jobs. It's not just not losing jobs. We have the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world. We're blessed. And this natural gas is the way to a clean environment. Because of fracking, we've reduced carbon emissions in the United States by about 20%. Exporting our natural gas around the world and replacing coal-fired plants in India is the path to reducing carbon. I'm an environmentalist. I'm a conservationist. I also want great jobs for Pennsylvania, and I want to be secure. Bob Casey, and Bob Casey has made us more dependent on China because these huge subsidies for EVs and solar panels, we have to buy from China. So 70% of the lithium batteries and the solar panels come from China. I can't think of a more stupid set of policies, and I'm anxious to hear
Time is up, sir.
Senator
Mr. Casey, same question to you. How do you plan to balance supporting the natural gas industry and protecting the environment? You have 60 seconds.
Dennis, my record's pretty clear on this. Number one is I supported legislation just 2 years ago that made the greatest investment in clean energy in American history, allowing us to combat climate change, and at the same time have supported an all-the-above energy strategy for Pennsylvania. We have natural gas. I've always supported it in the extraction of natural gas. He's been the same guy who lies about where he lives has been lying about my position on fracking. I voted against a fracking ban. He won't tell you that because he doesn't want to talk about his own record as a hedge fund CEO, investing in China's oil companies, managing money for Saudi Arabia's oil companies, investing in the rise of China. So many Pennsylvania jobs were lost because China was cheating, and he was helping them while they were cheating, investing in China and hurting Pennsylvania over and over and over again. The only common denominator here is when he made an investment that hurt Pennsylvania, the only commonality here is a lot of money went in his pocket.
Mr. McCormick, 30-second rebuttal.
You know, Senator Casey keeps coming back to my record because he can't defend his own. He can't defend his own on China. He's been in the Senate for 18 years. Ask yourself, where's his legislation get tough on China? Oh, it just came up a couple months ago. That's what happened. My mom's from Punxsutawney. Punxsutawney Bob pops his head out every 6 years and tries to act like he's doing things. This activity, it's all activity. He said on the LNG export ban that President Biden put in place, you know what he did to stop that? He sent a stern letter. That's what we have in this senator. A guy who keeps his head down, pops it up for political benefit, and gets nothing done.
We're out of time. Mr. Casey, you have a 30-second rebuttal, sir.
Well, look, I think the record of his investments are pretty damning. When you look at the investments in those China entities, whether it's a Chinese weapons manufacturer that had ties to Iran, why would you invest in a Chinese weapons manufacturer with ties to Iran, and then the weapons found their way to Hamas? The IDF found them after Hamas attacked the Israelis in the prosecution of that war against Hamas. Why would someone do that? It's because he wanted to make a lot of money and put it in his own pocket.
Another recent headline, Constellation Energy and Microsoft announced a plan to restart a reactor on 3 Mile Island, the site of the worst nuclear disaster in U.S. history. Mr. Casey, we're going to start with you. Do you support the reopening and the use of federal dollars for nuclear projects? 60 seconds.
When I said I'm for all the above energy portfolio, I include nuclear. We've got a strong nuclear base in Pennsylvania. I'm glad to see activity there at that site. We have to know more about what they're asking for. They asked for a loan guarantee, and that'll go to the Department of Energy. But look, Dennis, when we have those opportunities, we should take them to have investments made in our energy infrastructure or energy resources. But again, I'll go back to the same point. Mr. McCormick doesn't want to talk about those investments because he knows that people get a little uncomfortable when you've invested in an adversary and made money off of it. Over and over again, he's invested in adversaries and made a lot of money off it, and I don't think that's the kind of senator we want, because it seems like the same guy who spent time as a CEO prioritizing China now would go to the U.S. Senate and prioritize those billionaires. Hell, those billionaires are paying for more than half his ads. A small group of out-of-state billionaires supporting a candidate who is living out of state.
Mr. McCormick, same question. Do you support reopening 3 Mile Island, and would you approve federal dollars for such nuclear projects? You have 60 seconds.
Yes, I'm in favor of, as the senator said, all forms of energy. What I'm not in favor of is hundreds of billions of dollars of subsidies for clean energy projects that are driving inflation across our economy and across our country and making us more dependent on China. Senator Casey has a record of, again, that's a foe of the energy industry, not a friend of the energy industry. He's been for a cap and trade program that would have set up prices. He's for a regional gas initiative that would have raised prices. This is a senator who now says he wouldn't ban fracking, and Kamala Harris says they wouldn't ban fracking, so they now have synchronized flip-flopping. But this is not a guy who's been a strong friend of the energy sector and the natural gas sector. He said you can't drill your way to success. He said that he's introduced 6 pieces of legislation. He calls it fracking legislation. It's really anti-fracking legislation. He's contributed to the red tape that essentially bans fracking without actually banning fracking. So the senator here wants to have it both ways because he's a career politician. I'm for fracking, but I'm going to stand in the way of actual fracking with my behavior.
I want to turn to rebuttal to you, Mr. Casey. I wonder, do you have any concerns about a private company, in this case Microsoft, creating a nuclear power plant to serve its own needs?
Yes.
I do have concerns about that. That's why they got to make the case to me and to any federal agency. But I'm happy that there's activity at that site so that we have some activity for our energy sector. But look, let me just go back to what my opponent just said. The same guy who claims to know more about border security than the Border Patrol is now claiming he knows more about my record than the energy workers who support me. I got the support of the building trades in Pittsburgh and Philly, the United Mine Workers, all those folks who work, the Boilermakers, every union that's in energy. They support me, not him.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. A rebuttal for 30 seconds. Does it concern you about a company creating its own nuclear power plant?
We need to have the appropriate oversight and regulation, but we need to bring in private capital to get our nuclear energy sector back on track. But Senator Casey brought up the border again. I know more about the border. I simply have gone to the border. I don't think you have to be a genius to know that if you have 25,000 convicted murderers and rapists coming across the border, that's a problem. That is the weak, liberal, career politician Bob Casey who has been behind that. So this is about accountability. He's been in the Senate for 18 years, for Lord's sakes. Who is responsible for this wide open border? Who's responsible for this inflation?
Time is up.
Bob Casey would have you think that he was nowhere to be found.
We're going to switch topics. Mr. Casey, you and President Biden both grew up in Scranton. You were one of his closest allies in the Senate. And right up until the day he dropped out, you were supporting his candidacy. Kamala Harris has replaced him. From your perspective, who is the better candidate for Pennsylvania, Biden or Harris? You have 60 seconds.
Come on, man. Well, Dennis, I think Vice President Harris is running a strong campaign. I think she'll carry Pennsylvania. It's going to be very close, just like this Senate race will be close. But she's running a strong campaign. But the people of our state have to make two basic decisions in addition to other statewide races. They have to decide in the presidential race. They have to decide in our race. And this race is very clear. There's as clear a contrast as you could get on rights and on fights that a lot of working families want us to engage in. The fight on health care, whether or not we're going to have Medicare and Medicaid cut, or whether we're going to have an investment in our families, whether or not we're going to have an investment in our families through the child tax credit and a middle-class tax cut, or we're going to just give away the store again, as he wants to do in his plan, to give billionaires the same cuts they got before, and to jack up the, or reduce, I should say, the taxes on big corporations.
But in your view, would Biden or Harris have been better for Pennsylvania?
Oh, I don't know, Dennis. We'll never know the answer to that. But the voters are going to make a decision.
Okay, Mr. McCormick, you've criticized Mr. Casey for voting with President Biden almost all the time. Can you give us one example where you don't agree with Donald Trump on a specific position? You have 60 seconds.
Sure. I don't agree with him. He recently said that he wanted to get rid of the ban on salt taxes, which Senator Casey supported too. Listen, that's a tax break for millionaires in New York and California at the expense of PA taxpayers. So I wouldn't support that. But listen, Senator Casey stood next to Joe Biden when he could hardly finish a sentence. We saw this on the debate stage and said, he's ready to go. Then Senator Casey said, Kamala Harris is great. You're going to love her when you get to know her. This is a woman who in the last few years said she wanted to ban fracking, legalize illegal immigration, give them federal benefits, take away our guns, defund the police. This is her position. So she's flip-flopped on everything, and Bob Casey's standing there by her, and he will be a sure vote. He is a career politician. He has shown weakness when we need strength. He's a 99% vote for his party. He's talking about my independence. He's shown no independence, and he's adopted a set of extreme liberal policies that are truly taking our country in the right direction. So he and I agree. This is a big contrast between the two of us, a political outsider, a West Point graduate, and a businessman.
Thank you. Mr. Casey, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, he wants to talk about his business record. Well, here's his business record. He's been investing as a hedge fund CEO, living in Connecticut when he said he was in Pennsylvania, but as a hedge fund CEO, making investments in China, which is an adversary, making investments in, or at least managing money for the Saudis, managing money for President Xi of China, all while helping China rise when our workers were getting screwed. When China entered the World Trade Organization in 2001, that's where it began. Our workers started to lose jobs because China cheats.
Thank you very much.
Pennsylvania loses jobs.
Time is up. Mr. McCormick, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
I just remind your viewers to go to CaseyLies.com because he's telling some whoppers. There's a lot of Pinocchios here. But the bottom line is 30% of everything you have in your homes, if you're watching tonight, is made in China. Bridgewater invested 3% in China. And Senator Casey, as the treasurer, oversaw Bridgewater before I got there and approved all these investments. So he's a hypocrite and a liar. But this is a much more important question about what the future holds. So he's trying to attack my record. Listen, he's anti-business, he's anti-success. I've had a successful business career. I've served our country in Iraq in combat. I'm an outsider. He's a career politician, weak and too liberal.
New topic here. Mr. McCormick, former President Trump imposed tariffs, said if elected he would like to increase them, especially on Chinese products. Most economists say this will lead to higher prices. Do you support those tariffs? You have 60 seconds.
Well, it's interesting. I understand now Senator Casey's running an ad where he's saying that he worked with President Trump on the tariffs. Here's my view on trade. Two things are important. Number one, there's certain industries we have to bring home. We can't have those in the hands of China or anybody else. Pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and so on. And then for the rest of the things we trade, we have to have reciprocity. It's got to be a fair deal. President Trump is using tariffs to ensure we get a fair deal. He did that with steel. The Biden-Harris-Casey team kept those tariffs in place. I'm supportive of using tariffs strategically, as I think President Trump will, to make sure American workers get a fair deal. And that's what I think he'll do when he's president, and I'll support him when he does it.
Mr. Casey, in September, you urged and applauded the Biden administration for increasing tariffs on China, which was an extension of Trump's tariffs. Are you saying the former president was right on that? 60 seconds.
He was, and I said so at the time. I supported the tariffs for steel and aluminum because when you use tariffs in a targeted strategic fashion, you can help our workers and level the playing field, or at least try to, and help our companies. That's what I support. I'll continue to support it. But again, my opponent, he's trying to have it both ways. He talks about tariffs, but what he won't talk about is the plan that he outlined here tonight to double down on those tax cuts for big corporations and wealthy Americans. That automatically puts not only these, but especially these, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid on the chopping block, all to give another tax break to the biggest billionaires on the planet and the largest corporations. They're the ones that are funding his campaign. That's his payoff to them. He's bought and paid for by these big corporations and billionaires. They're paying for his ads, and they want his tax cut.
Time is up. Mr. McCormick, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
For all
Go ahead.
this money that I have supporting me, it's so funny how Bob Casey's outspent me by $75 million. Whoever his friends are, Alex Soros or George Soros or all the people that are supporting him, Bob Casey has a lot more money than me. So I'm the underdog here, and Bob Casey's outspending me by a lot. And it's because they know he's a sure vote. Chuck Schumer knows he can't lose Bob Casey. It's a sure thing, 99% of the time. So Bob Casey is anti-success. You've heard that tonight. He's anti-business. If you get him in the Senate for 6 more years, you're going to see more of the same. More spending, price controls, restrictions,
Thank you, Mr.
regulations.
McCormick. Mr. Casey, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Look, I know he's going to continue to brag about his record as a hedge fund CEO. So let's talk a little more about that. I talked to you about those investments in China. He's also a hedge fund CEO who silenced women when they came forward to make allegations about sexual harassment. He silenced women. At the same time he was doing that, I was passing legislation
Fuck that dude,
with Pat Toomey to get tougher on predators who are targeting minors, and also passing legislation to make it more difficult for anyone to commit the crime of sexual assault on a campus.
Your time is up. I do want to give you 15 seconds just to address that.
Listen, I've got a track record over 25 years in business of mentoring and creating great environments for all workers, including women, minorities. My track record is beyond repute. And Senator Casey, when we talk about sexual predators, they're coming across the border as we speak. Tens of thousands of them approved by Casey.
New topic. Last year, Pittsburgh-based U.S. Steel announced a $14.1 billion sale to Japan's Nippon Steel. Mr. Casey, you've called for the Biden administration to block that sale, but Japan is one of our closest
allies. This is the
allies.
Pennsylvania Senate debate. This is Democrat Bob Casey, the incumbent, Republican David McCormick, the challenger.
Private business transaction. You have 60 seconds.
Hey, Dennis, the key for me are those steelworker jobs in the Mon Valley and the jobs in Pittsburgh, not steelworker jobs, but U.S. Steel jobs. I want to make sure at all costs that those steelworker jobs stay here. They're union jobs. I don't like what I've been hearing from U.S. Steel over the last couple of years, talking about moving those jobs to Arkansas, a non-union state, but that's my prime concern. My concern about Nippon is it'd be a foreign-owned steel company buying the iconic U.S. Steel business and putting at risk those union steelworker jobs. We cannot lose those jobs. It would be devastating for the Mon Valley, and I think it would be devastating for Pennsylvania.
Mr. McCormick, perhaps you agree on this because you've also said if elected you would fight to block the sale. Why do you believe the federal government should be intervening in a private business transaction? You have 60 seconds.
Well, generally speaking, my view will be let's not have the government get too involved. Like Senator Casey's always government. But in cases of national security, where a domestic steel industry truly is important for America's future, then I think you got to intervene. And in this case, even though Japan's an ally, Nippon owns operations around the world in China, Iran, Russia, and elsewhere. And I think this does pose national security concerns that you'd have to work through. So I'm opposed for that reason. But listen, this is a beautiful question because U.S. Steel was actually going to invest billions of dollars in the Mon Valley a few years ago, and instead it took a new plant to Arkansas. And the reason it took a new plant to Arkansas was because the Allegheny County government blocked the new project on environmental grounds. Now, if I was the senior senator from Pennsylvania, I'd be standing on the desk of the people in Allegheny County getting that great investment, those jobs here. This is the kind of failure of leadership that's taking Pennsylvania.
I'd do a striptease while I was on the desk.
Senator who keeps his head down and doesn't fight for Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Your time is up, Mr. Casey. I want to give you 30-second rebuttal.
He was in Connecticut when that was going on, so let's be clear about that. Running the biggest hedge fund in the world, hurting our state when he was investing in China's military, investing in adversaries. So he doesn't have any standing to talk about what should have been done in Pennsylvania. And secondly, when you hear what he just said, he favored the outsourcing, and he's an expert on outsourcing, by the way, favored the outsourcing of those jobs to Arkansas, meaning union steelworker jobs would not be in Pittsburgh, in the Mon Valley. That's the difference between us. I'll fight for those jobs. I'll fight for those union jobs.
Mr. McCormick, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
What you said is exactly opposite of what I just said. I said it was because of regulations, because of Pennsylvania not making itself attractive enough that those jobs left. You should have been a leader in breaking through those regulations and those bureaucrats and that red tape to allow that investment to come to Pennsylvania. We lost those jobs because of you and your failure and your absolute lack of leadership, which is a pattern. Show me a place where you've stood up and made a huge difference for Pennsylvania. You are a weak senator. You're a liberal senator. You're a career politician who wants to have it both ways. Pennsylvania deserves better. We're in a time of crisis.
Your time is up, sir. We're going to change topics.
Dennis,
Thank you.
15 seconds, yes, sir.
Why don't you show some strength and support the border bill? The Border Patrol support.
I'd love to answer that.
Number two, he's talking a good game here about U.S. Steel. This is the guy that bet against U.S. Steel, bet on Chinese steel companies, not American steel companies.
Thank you. And you'll both have 90-second closing statements. I want to remind you, new topic. U.S. Surgeon General says the mental health crisis among young people is an emergency, and social media has emerged as an important contributor. Mr. McCormick, you've called for a social media ban for kids under 16. How would you enforce that, and what penalties would you impose on social media companies that don't comply? You have 6
Fuck them kids.
Well, listen, I think this is one of many contributors or possible contributors to a mental health crisis, and I know the social media companies are trying to begin to think about how to have approvals and turn on buttons that allow parents to be much more involved in turning off social media. And I think there's evidence to suggest this.
Everyone, light one up, tip one back. I'm not high enough for this shit.
Than just social media. It's happening in our schools. It's happening across our country. It's happening with veterans, something I've been very involved in. Since Senator Casey's been in office, there's been 20 years of 22 veterans a day killing themselves. This is absolutely unthinkable. It's indefensible. So if I get to the Senate, one of the first things I'm going to do is focus on veterans benefits. There's a huge mental health crisis with veterans, and work to make sure that the veterans have the care they need so 22 a day aren't killing themselves. This is part of the reason we have a recruiting crisis, part of the reason we have the homeless problem with veterans. It says a lot about a country in terms of the way they've treated the people that serve. I know this as someone who served.
Time is up. Mr. Casey, your Democratic colleague, Senator Blumenthal, supports similar legislation on youth and social media. Do you support any restrictions on children using that? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, and I just voted for the bill. Thank goodness a bipartisan bill in the Senate to help kids, to protect them, but also to protect their privacy. I want to mention something that Mr. McCormick said about veterans. I commend his service to the country. At the same time, I've also got a strong record of supporting VA health care every time it comes up for a vote, but also being one of those senators leading the way to pass the PACT Act, the first time that we've been able to help those veterans in those who serve near those toxic burn pits. It's a great achievement. More than 1 million veterans benefited from that. On social media, though, here's the difference. I've just voted for that bill, but here's the difference. This is a candidate who invested his own personal money in a website that platforms hate, Holocaust denial, and anti-Semitism. That's not good for anyone.
I want to know more about this website.
To look at, and there's no question that young people see that. And it was a bad investment. I don't know why he continues to make money off of that kind of a platform.
Okay, gentlemen, time is very tight. You will now each have a chance for a closing statement. Mr. McCormick, we're going to begin with you. You have 90 seconds, sir.
Great. This is
probably
the election of our lifetime. Our country is in trouble. Our Commonwealth is in trouble. We have wide open borders. We have a weak economy.
Maybe Rumble
is going in the wrong direction. Skyrocketing prices that are putting enormous pressure on most families. I'm a 7th-generation Pennsylvanian. I'm a political outsider. I'm a businessman. I'm a West Point graduate. I'm a combat vet from Iraq. I'm running because I want to make sure the America I love is available for my 6 daughters, for all of our children. Bob Casey is not just part of the problem. Bob Casey is the problem. Bob Casey's a weak leader. Bob Casey is a career politician. Bob Casey went to the Senate to change Washington. Washington changed Bob Casey. Bob's voted for wide open borders. He voted for sanctuary cities. He's voted
Bob Casey a
funding
lot
for the Border Patrol. He's voted for federal benefits for illegal immigrants. He's voted for all these wild spending bills under Biden and Harris, which have led to an increase in prices for working families. He's been soft on crime. He's been soft on China. He's voted for tax hikes on middle-class workers in Pennsylvania, and he's voted for tax cuts for millions.
They make pills for that.
California and in New York. Bob Casey's actually voted for biological males to be able to compete in women's sports. So let's face it, Bob, you are a liberal. And this is not the Bob Casey you elected for office 30 years ago. We need common sense leadership that's going to secure the border, get our economy back on track, and keep America safe. Our Commonwealth deserves change. I'd be honored to get your vote, and I'd be honored to serve as your senator.
Time is up, Mr. Casey. You have 90 seconds.
Hey, Dennis, thank you, and to thank ABC 27 for this opportunity. Every day I've been a United States Senator, I've gone to work for the people of our state, fighting for working families, fighting for workers themselves, fighting for our children, seniors, people with disabilities, our veterans, and I've got a strong record on all those issues. I've also fought to lower costs, to invest in strategies that will secure the border, and to invest in the middle class. That's been my record. While I was doing that and working on behalf of the people of our state, this guy was running the largest hedge fund in the world, investing in China. He increased investments in China by 108,000%. He invested in China's military. He invested in the company in China that made 90% of the fentanyl in China. He invested in Chinese oil companies. He invested in, he managed money for President Xi, managed money for Saudi oil companies. All of those investments hurt Pennsylvania and continue to hurt Pennsylvania. The voters in this state have a very clear choice. They can vote for a candidate who's going to vote against union rights, women's rights, and workers' rights, and voting rights, or they can vote for me, who's going to protect all those rights and fight every day for those families and win like I have. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I respectfully ask for the vote of the people of Pennsylvania on November the 5th.
And we're grateful both of you joined us tonight. That concludes our debate. Thank you both very much for being here. I want to remind viewers that the election day is November 5th. Polls in Pennsylvania are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm Dennis Owens in Harrisburg, and this has been Debate Night in Pennsylvania.
There you have it. That was the Pennsylvania Senate debate. Bulletproof, welcome in. I want to give a shout out to everybody. 1011. Did somebody shout out Very Nice TV? Thank you for the raid. Did somebody give them a shout out? Mox, good evening. Welcome in, my friend. Komradsky. DJT270. I see you over on YouTube. I'm glad to have you here, my friend. DJ Dub, welcome in. Thank you, Clinically. Avalon, I don't know if I told you good evening yet. Welcome in, everyone. Footlong, thank you for being here. If you are new to the channel, I am JustinFREAKIN. We find out what that news be doing Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. The most absurd news, politics, and current events on the internet, which is what we're getting ready to do right now. I've got a whole shit ton of all that. If you want to know my political affiliation, it can best be summed up with, I'm kind of malleable. Malleable. It can best be summed up with whatever political affiliation I feel will get me closest to my goal of pissing in Dan Crenshaw's open eye hole. I can tell you it's not all bad news, but it's a lot of bad news. I mean, what do we cover here on this channel? We do some of the most serious stories you can possibly cover while making dick and fart jokes and talking about penises because we're 7 years old. But we watch like congressional hearings and shit. It's weird. A very niche audience, I do believe I'm cultivating. I am ever since Dan Crenshaw became a snowflake and made Saturday Night Live apologize for Pete Davidson making fun of him, I've wanted to piss in his eye pussy. Ponder Monkey, I don't think I told you good evening. Well, I mean, you deserve some aftercare, so here.
La pizza.
Oculussy.
Mei. Çok ayıp ya, öyle mi yapalım?
Why are you standing in the kitty bed? Is it because the kitty is in your bed? Is that it? Oh, oh buddy.
So cute.
Oh my God, my heart just
adorable. Little dick. Go to a segment from C-SPAN this morning. Jessica Taylor from Cook Political Report, one of the most trusted ratings and polling agencies.
Every race is a potential majority maker in the Senate this year. This week, you wrote about Senator Ted Cruz's race against Democratic Congressman Colin Allred, a race that's becoming more competitive with less than 5 weeks to go until Election Day.
Yeah, I mean, and this is good news for Democrats because overall the map is very hard.
I guess I do need to plug, we have more debates coming up. Next week we have the Arizona Senate debate between Ruben Gallego, Carrie Lake, that's the open seat from Kirsten Sinema, on October. Also next week we've got Elisa Slotkin and Mike Rogers in the Michigan Senate debate. The Colin Allred, Ted Cruz Senate debate is October 15th. So we've got many big debates coming up. I'm gonna keep you updated. I expect a lot of people to tune in for the Gallego, Carrie Lake debate and the Ted Cruz, Colin Allred debate.
Hard for Democrats. They have a 51-49 majority, but it functionally starts at 50-50 because they're going to lose that West Virginia seat with Joe Manchin retiring. So that means that they cannot afford to lose any incumbent. And they have to have Vice President Kamala Harris win the presidency. Now, Montana is one that we moved a couple of weeks ago. John Tester is by far the most vulnerable incumbent, and we see him as the underdog. So we shifted that race to lean Republican. So that means that if
ninth as of right now, but
the majority, they have to find another offensive target.
Sometimes they schedule them fast.
Texas is becoming that target. You have Ted Cruz, of course, he won by less than 3 points in 20.
No, I apologize. On October 8th, we have a couple of congressional debates we're going to be watching. New York's 22nd district, that's Representative Brandon Williams, and Republican challenger John Mannion. I have no idea how to say his name. Iowa's 3rd district, that's on October 8th. This is Tuesday, October 8th. Representative Zach Nunn is a Republican. Democratic challenger Lannon Backham. We also got Oregon's 5th on October. A lot of debates on October 8th. Yeah, goddamn. We're going to be watching a lot of debates October 8th. And also, there could be others that pop up. Probably tomorrow I'll check and see, because I've got all the races listed. And basically, I just have to Google each one every day that doesn't have a debate scheduled yet. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but I do it for you guys. We still do not have a date for an Ohio debate between Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno. That is one I'm very much looking forward to. I want to see a debate with Jim Justice in West Virginia. That's the one that, Cook is saying automatically the Democrats lose. I can't wait to have Jim Justice in the Senate. If you've never seen Jim Justice or been exposed to him, god damn, he's hilarious. He's a Republican, and he'll hold up his dog's ass. I hope Baby Dog makes it. Comes with him to Washington, D.C., and he brings her to the Senate floor. You will love Baby Dog, but he will totally put Baby Dog's ass up in the camera and tell people to kiss the dog's ass. He's very colorful. I enjoy Jim Justice, even though he's a shit-ass Republican. Used to be a Democrat, changed when Trump came along. Very weird. We still do not have a debate date for Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey in California. And I don't know if we'll get debates in Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Indiana, Maine. I'm on the lookout. I would like to see the debate in Minnesota. Amy Klobuchar is defending her seat. She's the Democratic incumbent. Royce White apparently was a sporty ball player and is fucking nuts. I think he has a podcast or something, and I think we watched a clip of him on the show. I doubt we're gonna get Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, but we'll see. I can tell you that in Wyoming, John Barrasso, he has declined to debate his Democratic challenger, Scott Morrow. And in Nebraska, Pete Ricketts, the incumbent senator, has declined to debate Preston Love. So it is what it is. And I've been trying to keep an eye on some of the most competitive congressional races.
2018 against Beto O'Rourke. That was in a midterm election, though, and presidential elections should be harder in Texas, but there's a couple of unique things happening. Listen, Ted Cruz is polarizing, and he's
Republicans don't like Ted Cruz.
He's emphasized his work as a legislator. He's sort of toned down the bombastic personality that we know, but he's running against Colin Allred, who is a more centrist congressman, flipped a seat in 2018 from red to blue in the midterm election. Then he was drawn into a safe seat, so he really could have stayed in this suburban Dallas seat for as long as he wanted, but Democrats convincing him to run for Senate was really quite the coup. And so he's been able to fundraise. In fact, the latest numbers here in Texas, he's already spent almost $50 million between him and between Allred's campaign. Versus Cruz and his allies have only spent about $22.3 million. So that heavy advantage on air has enabled, I think, Allred to raise his name ID, to get his message out there. And there's two things that I think Cruz is uniquely vulnerable on. Abortion is now, of course, a bigger issue than it was in 2018 after the Dobbs decision. Texas is one of the most restrictive laws in the country. And then Cancun. I was watching a focus group a couple of weeks ago of undecided Trump voters in this Senate race, and they immediately brought up Cancun, which in 2021, after the state was hit hard with a winter storm, power outages, the power grid failed, Cruz went with his family on a vacation to Mexico. He was very much assailed for this. There was sort of this iconic image of him coming back, rolling a suitcase with a Texas mask. Allred features that in a lot of his ads, talks about Ted Cruz abandoned us when we needed him. And so I think it sort of further inflames why people have very strong feelings about Ted Cruz. But you see Republicans now putting more money in the race, painting Allred as tied to Harris and Biden, particularly on immigration. But we're seeing tightening poll numbers here and increased spending.
That's why I wanted to focus on the poll numbers. Is it because Texas is the best bad option for Democrats with not a lot of targets, or is there actually polling here showing that Allred has a path?
We've seen it I've seen polling between 2 and 3 points. I think probably
with Cruz ahead.
Yes, Cruz is still leading. And I think Republicans have it slightly larger, but in public polling, we have seen it in that. But I think also those last 2 to 3 points in Texas are just Herculean. But I think you're right. It is sort of the best bad option. It's still very difficult. But the fact that Allred is raising his own money and can get those lower candidate rates, and when it comes to advertising, I kind of think of it in the other bucket is Florida, of course. Senator Rick Scott, also up for re-election there, also has had issues with his approval ratings and favorability, but Debbie Mukersel-Powell, his Democratic opponent, has just not been able to fundraise at the level that Allred has. Now we have national Democrats. The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee said last week they're putting money in both races. So far, we've seen that show. We've seen that show up in hybrid ads and things. But I think that when you look at sort of where the money is and the fact that Ted Cruz can't write himself a check versus Rick Scott in Florida, who's a multimillionaire, can.
All right, the next big story today. L1. Welcome in. What are the left views on Israel? I think people are pretty outraged from anywhere from outraged to completely enraged at the idea of what Israel is doing. And that might be putting it lightly. That might be an understatement. And the chat will probably tell you exactly what they think. So, the other big story today was the sentencing for former Colorado County Clerk Tina Peters. 9 years for voting data scheme. A judge ripped into a Colorado County clerk for her crimes and lies before sentencing her on Thursday to 9 years behind bars for a data breach scheme spawned from the rampant false claims about voting machine fraud in the 2020 presidential election. District Judge Matthew Barrett told former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters after early sparring with her for continuing to press discredited claims about rigged voting machines that she never took her job seriously. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as defiant as any defendant this court has ever seen. Barrett told her in handing down the sentence, "You are no hero, you abuse your position, and you're a charlatan." God damn. Man was affiliated with My Pillow chief executive Mike Lindell, who might have been on crack.
I was on crack.
Right.
Prominent promoter of false claims that voting machines were manipulated to steal the election from former President Donald Trump. The discredited claims trace back to Trump himself, whose supporters attacked the U.S. Capitol because of them, and who still hints at them in his third run for president. Do you want to see how Donald Trump talked about Miss Peters? Back in 2020.
Go ahead. This is Tina Peters running for Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Tina Peters! Yeah, baby. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you are. Yeah. Yeah.
This is 2022.
Do you have anybody in the Republican primary? I do. You know, it is Pam Anderson, who is the director. Not the Pam Anderson. No.
Not the one with the titties.
I want to look at this tomorrow. Well, do you have a card or something? Just give him the information. This is a rock star. Right. She is.
A rock star.
I'm the one that did the commission. Yeah, no, you did. And then they went after you. Yeah. See, they go after you if you're investigating. Yes. Right. I've been investigating since day one, President Trump.
What he means by going after her, I guess, is, you know, when they arrested her, because that's a fun video too.
Okay, Randy, put your cup down and turn around. Ma'am?
No. Let go of me. You let go of me. Let go of me. Let go of me. Let go of me.
Stop resisting.
Let go of me. Go.
It hurts. Let go of me. Give me my
You got kicked. Do you understand?
Stop it. No, let go of me. Yes, you are, Caleb. Give me my key to my car. Give me my key to my car. Give me my key to my car. Give it to me. Give me my key.
Boggs.
Take my purse. Let go of me. You're hurting me. And I'm going to show all the bruises that you put on me.
If you're not going to cooperate, you'll be charged with obstructing.
Let go of me.
It's like 40 minutes long, but I have her talking to the judge.
Let go of me.
I kind of want to watch it.
Pulling against you. Let go of me.
Then stand up like an adult.
Shut up. What an asshole thing to say to me.
What an asshole thing to say to me. You don't get your police chase now. If we're watching this, we don't do a police chase.
On you. You do not have to address me, ma'am, and in fact, you retain the right to remain silent. And if you choose not to address me, I will not use your decision to not address me in any way against you. But if you do,
fuck it, we'll do the police chase.
A little about you, this case, or anything else you think I need to know in order to impose my sentence properly in your mind, I would just ask that you stand when you address me.
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. May I take the podium?
Yes, the lectern. Yes, you may.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. It's with a heavy heart that I hear the vile accusations and the anger levied against me for what I did to serve the people of Mesa County.
This is amazing.
Maintaining my innocence is not disrespect for the law. I respect the jury verdict based on the evidence that they were allowed to hear. There's much that they weren't allowed to hear. I never intended a video of the trusted bill to be made public. I did not authorize it to be made public. I asked questions about Dominion violating election laws.
He's a true believer.
One moment.
Most of them fold and they're like, I'm sorry.
Since 2022, I've been on restriction, and now I have an ankle bracelet that I've been compliant with that.
Oh, are we doing something on the screen? Oh,
Yes,
I didn't know that.
yes, Your
Get to it, woman.
Oh, sorry. Thank
That's
you.
all right. Excuse me.
Judge, I've never lied to you. Can we zoom in on that, please?
Yep.
Mr. Rubenstein accused me in court of recording on my iPad. I did not record on my iPad. This was the transcript of that. He says, I've now seen the screen, and indeed, it's recording. Then later, Rubenstein admitted he didn't know if I was recording or not.
This is like a stream David watched.
It was recording or not. In my eyes, Mr. Rubenstein lied to you, Judge, which resulted in me being
like some woman on Rumble with 17 viewers.
And lying to you.
The ankle bracelet is for your contempt or for your conviction in the obstruction case?
Well, all of those two cases were a direct result of that day in court that the DA got up, interrupted a normal proceeding. I didn't interrupt the proceeding to get up and cause a big stir.
Oh, Judge Dunkelman found otherwise, but I guess we could just disagree on that. I understand what you're saying. Go ahead.
They kept the iPad for 15 months. They never searched it.
Yes, 9 years is a lot to do for Trump.
To a lab. They said there was no recording ever on it. None of the 66 videos.
Afternoon Dave.
Or go up. No, go the other way. The report states, wait, so, go up a little bit more, thank you.
We don't do exactly the same thing, but we're complimentary.
Videos were deleted. None of the videos were recorded on February 7th, 2022. There was never any recording made, and my iPad proves it.
I don't even know what she's trying to argue.
I want to take a break here and address some of the accusations, the vile accusations that have been levied against me with such anger and vile. As a Christian woman and as a gentle person, basically, that stepped up to run for county clerk and recorder because we had 3.5-hour wait times from the prior, who is now the present clerk, who was the manager of elections. 3.5-hour wait times. I looked at that, Judge, as a business owner. I could have minded my own business. I could have stayed living a great life, my husband and I.
Why didn't you?
But instead, I stood up and I said, I can fix that. My son said in his SEAL Team 6 paperwork before he died, I read it after he died, he said, describe your mother. He said, she fixes things. When I see something that needs to be fixed, that's good.
iPad was not recording, therefore Trump won 2020.
I ran for clerk and recorder, and I'll get into that part in just a moment, but I'm very taken back by how
it is 40 minutes of this
depicted when I was just trying to do my job, the people expected me to do. When I look at the people that have spoken here today and asking for harsh sentences, I'm just appalled. I feel bad for them because I know, I've often said God doesn't like people messing with his kids, and I believe I'm a child of God, and I believe that it was important for someone to stand up, and I chose to do that. As far as Gerald Wood and Wendy Wood, I think during the trial, the text messages that were presented, when at first Gerald Wood said, he said that, yes, I used the name Trebuchet. Yes, that's my phone number.
Trebuchet?
And then when and the date, which was May 14th, I believe. And then when he started reading that it said, I'm your guy, meaning he was the guy that was going to stand in.
But I was thinking Mock.
And use his identity to protect the identity of Conan Hayes, who had just busted
Trebuchet has a
the
counterweight.
federal government, a human trafficking organization called Backpage. My son was involved in anti-human trafficking. He worked with, as a Navy SEAL, he worked with.
Oh, I bet he was.
That's what they did that nobody ever knew. And that's what I believe caused his death. But when he looked at those, when he changed his tune, after he was shown the proof that he was complicit, that he knew that he was stepping up to conceal the identity of Conan Hayes, to see him deny it now while we have proof in text from him that he admitted were his, and then all of a sudden had a case of amnesia. Here it is right here.
Wait.
Oh. I don't know if I need to turn this on or not, but go ahead and hit
Can you
play.
make that bigger? Okay. So let's stop right there. Can we stop it? Tina, this is our guy. He says, that I am. And then I said, hi, guy. Nice to meet you. I'll call tomorrow. Is there a good time, early morning or afternoon for you? I have meetings, and I explained that. Okay, keep going. But this is Sharona Bishop saying, this is your guy. He gives me his phone number. He says, Fridays are generally quiet for me, if you can stop here. And that was May 13th. Feel free to call whenever's best for you.
Oh, I bet her son was a
He
SEAL.
says, I have my Mesa County employee badge.
There's no record of him because he
This is
was
a man who never filled out an employment application.
Special Forces.
This is a man who never filled out an employment application, never went through the interview process, but now he has an employee badge. Don't you think that somebody like that would wonder? No. Okay, we're getting prepared. I think it would be good to bring in Sandy at this point to strategize before our guest comes. Who do you think that refers to? The guest comes. So right there, you can see, Your Honor, that Gerald Wood knew what his role in this was. As much as he, because of fear or whatever else the prosecution aimed at him, to get to testify against me for his freedom and throw me under the bus. He says that the give, send, go. They talk about that I lied about that involvement. They talk about the give, send, go, that I've profited from this, Judge.
Air shows are dangerous.
Attorneys. I don't have the money of the Colorado Attorney General's office, who is represented here, who were sworn in to be prosecutors in this case and who conducted the trial. It takes a lot of money to fight the government. Cody Davis, when he got up. So during this time, when the ankle break, when the iPad, when I was accused of recording in your courtroom, just sitting right over there, which I did not do, the next day I'm at a commissioner's hearing. They see the iPad in my purse. We're sitting there. All of a sudden, 22 minutes they delayed the commissioner's hearing in order to go get a search warrant for the iPad they saw in my purse. Unwitting, people sitting there with me. We waited. Then we said our grievances or our what we wanted to say to the commissioners.
And you were recording, weren't you?
We were followed 1 block away to Main Street Bagel, and that's when all hell broke loose. They came in, descended on it like it was a drug bust. Grabbed the iPad. I don't know what's happening. I grab it back, and then they totally caught me by surprise. And so, yes, I agree. I didn't react normally, or because this was not a normal situation. But during that commissioner's hearing, and we've had this enhanced and we can hear it, during the time they took this break, Janet Rowland bends down and covers the microphone like this and says she won't want to come back here after this. And Cody Davis, that's sitting right back here, said, then you can hear it if you play back the recording, sacrificial lamb. He called me a sacrificial lamb.
She's just catty.
Cody Davis said 1.4 million.
I don't know if that's the same incident that we just watched on video a few minutes
every single
ago.
day during COVID. Every single day. So did my chief deputy. We worked. We didn't stay home like a lot of people did enjoying a vacation. We worked, and I figured out ways to make it so we still provided those services to the citizens of Mesa County. As a matter of fact, when I first took office, they said it couldn't be done. I couldn't lower those 3.5-hour wait times. And I'm the type of person that while somebody's saying something can't be done, I'm doing it. Like I said, my son says I fix things. Shortly after I was sworn in, 1 month later, I started opening the offices in Fruita for $150 a month. And then the Fruita office for a third of what had been paid before. I'd been negotiating that for 10 months before I even took office, being a former real estate broker and also being in the...
I can't listen to her ramble. There's 30 more minutes of that. And we were watching it at 2 times speed. But you got 9 years. 9 years. We can listen to the judge scold her.
So it is well settled that for the purposes of discovery, evidence that can be used to impeach a witness, promoting the acceptance of responsibility. That doesn't mean that a defendant has to take responsibility. To the contrary, Ms. Peters has exercised her right to a jury trial. She's exercised her right to hold the people to their burden, and such cannot and will not be used by this court as a means by which, or justification by which, to punish her. She tells me about her ailments, her loss, her struggles in life. But in reality, for those of you who may have been here earlier this morning and seen some of the folks who've occupied that chair before Miss Peters, there could be not much in the way of a comparison in terms of the type of sympathy one would extend to Miss Peters. Those folks didn't have 4 lawyers representing them. They didn't have a team of assistants helping them.
Damn.
They're not getting rides in private jets all over the country. No, the people who sit in that chair suffer, generally speaking, immeasurable trauma in life, struggle mightily with alcohol abuse, substance abuse, mental health struggles, family loss. They come from broken homes. The cards they were dealt were never the cards that you were dealt, Miss Peters. So when I hear you discuss your husband, who sadly passed away recently, your family struggles, and your son, who served our country admirably and made the ultimate sacrifice, I consider it
an air show.
That he honored his oath to the country, something that is not lost on me when considering the circumstances under which you find yourself here. Your age, limited criminal history, and the like are certainly somewhat mitigating. Your ties to the community are what they are, but your reputation at this point is poor because of what you've done here and after. Your lies are well documented, and these convictions are serious. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as defiant as a defendant as this court has ever seen. You don't have those histories of drug and alcohol abuse. There's no lifetime of trauma, not even close to the type of mitigating circumstances I would see from many folks who sit in that chair. No, to the contrary, Ms. Peters, you are a privileged person. You are as privileged as they come. And you use that privilege to obtain power, a following, and fame. And to be sure, there's no doubt in my mind that that is exactly what you wanted, and it defies all sense of common sense to believe when you suggested to me a few moments ago that you didn't want this attention. No, you crave it, ma'am. And there is no one
she does.
who would consider that to be anything other than the absolute truth. But to get to the point of what it is that you did here, it's my impression distinctly that you never took your job of clerking particularly seriously. You didn't complete the certification. One scandal after another followed you in your time as the clerk. And ultimately, it was a belief that the echo chamber in which you live couldn't be wrong, among other things, that led you to do what you did here. This thought process, unfortunately, seems to consume so many in our country, regardless of race, gender, political affiliation, or the like, that what it is we hear and think can't possibly be wrong. There are many things in my mind that are crystal clear about this case. You are no hero, you abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. In your world, it's all about you. But at bottom, this case was about your corrupt conduct and how no one is above the law. No one in this country has absolute power. Your position as a clerk and recorder, a constitutional position, does not provide you with a means by which to do your own investigation, to not listen to the judiciary, to not listen to the executives higher than you, to not listen to the legislature who sets the law as it may be. This is nonsense. Our system of government can't function when people in government think that somehow, some way, the power they've been given is absolute in all respects. And that's where you fell. You have no respect for the checks and balances of government. You have no respect for this court. You have no respect for law enforcement. And you do not have respect for your fellow colleagues when you were a clerk and recorder who weren't lockstep in your beliefs. Period. Indeed, just weeks before trial, you were apparently doing what I mentioned earlier, that is, over at the clerk and recorder's office where you're not supposed to be, violating the protection order by speaking to employees of that entity with your camera crew in tow.
Some Farquaad. Yeah, I think we've got past the juicy part. She gets 9 years. I'd kind of like to see her reaction.
Of our democratic process.
She is Tina Peters. She was the, what was her position? The build up to this has been hilarious. We watched her get arrested. She's yelling at him and shit. We watched her present her argument back.
Process. The undermining of the belief and confidence in our election systems. It's not about questioning it. No one says you can't question, you can't ask. It's completely different.
Tried to help Trump steal the election.
Say or do here today, that will change your mind. So I'll begin by saying I've considered all of those purposes of staying a bit.
You're just now beginning?
I've mentioned all of them here generally in my comments already, and I find that a stay of any sentence I impose would be wholly unwarranted. All cases have a possibility of reversal on appeal, no doubt. I'm at peace with all of the decisions I've made here. If anything, I gave you and your counsel far too much leeway at times, but the rulings I made came after much consideration, incredible amounts of internal debate, and I trust in accordance with the applicable law. I consider the sentence here, in this case, what are available to me. Probation. Community corrections wasn't requested, but it wouldn't be an option in any event, and an incarcerative sentence to the Department of Corrections. Probation's focus is rehabilitation. That is, for folks who have minimal criminal histories, low LSI scores like you, Miss Peters, but where punishment isn't really on the table. It's about putting someone back in the community who's not a risk and giving them a chance to correct those things that brought them before me in the first place. Community corrections, which again isn't available, but nevertheless I'll mention, is another option that I could still order. It's much more stringent than probation, but it's not prison. And it's for folks who have even higher needs. Again, drug addicts, alcohol abusers, and the like. And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us. Whether it be by the pen or the sword or the word of the mouth. Prison is where folks go, where punishment is what we're focused on, because the crime committed is so significant that anything less would unduly mitigate this.
His level of supervision inventory.
I mentioned before there are no mental health concerns there's no good reason why you're here, Ms. Peters.
I have no idea.
The active decisions that you made that cost our county significantly, but also more importantly, cost you greatly, Mr. Wood, all the members of the county who worked and trusted you when you asked them to do things that they did on your behalf. It's part of your lies. The expense, the toll is immeasurable. So putting you on probation when you have zero needs that would be met by probation is the very definition of unduly depreciating the significance of what it is that you've done here, the harm that you've caused our community and continue to cause. Community corrections is the same, so prison is the only place that duly meets the purposes of sentencing in this matter. And therefore the sentence and judgment of the court is as follows. As to counts 1 and 4, the judgment and sentence of the court is 3.5 years in the Department of Corrections. Those sentences will be concurrent to each other. As to count 2, the judgment and sentence of the court is 3.5 years consecutive to counts 1 and 4. As it relates to the misdemeanor charges, count 8 is 120 days in the Mesa County Detention Facility, concurrent to count 9 and 10, which will be 6 months in the Mesa County Detention Facility, consecutive to the prison sentence. The reason those sentences are consecutive is because those sentences are, as the prosecution stated, directly related to what it is that you did here in our community, the damage you caused this community, the breach of your oath to the electorate in Mesa County. Your sentence will be followed by
9 years
parole. You have 2 days of pre-sentence confinement credit.
So that was satisfying to watch. That was Tina Peters. Tried to help Trump steal the election. Now been sentenced to 9 years in prison. Let's continue on. Let's talk about some of Trump's buddies, I'm sure. Wild story of a bunch of white supremacist gang members, which I assume mean cops, being arrested. Massive bust.
We begin today with the arrest of 42 members of the San Fernando Valley-based white supremacist street gang, the Peckerwoods. The indictment
charges
68 defendants with numerous federal crimes.
And now with this news reporter Sid Garcia is live at the LAPD's North Hollywood.
The Peckerwoods.
And video of some of the arrests made.
He said Peckerwoods on television. This is the shit I live for.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me.
The white supremacist gang, the Peckerwoods.
We begin today with the arrest of 42 members of the San Fernando Valley-based white supremacist street gang, the Peckerwoods. The indictment charges a total of 68 defendants with numerous federal crimes.
And now with this news reporter Sid Garcia is live at the LAPD's North Hollywood station with the details and video of some of the arrests made today. Sid.
Guys, it was the LAPD, the FBI, the DEA, and other police agencies that took part in the takedown today. As you mentioned, dozens of members of this white supremacist gang were taken down, and according to the feds, they committed more than just hate crimes.
Taking the guns out of the hands of gang members, taking drugs off our streets, increases the safety and reduces the harm that these activities pose to our communities.
The LAPD, FBI, DEA, and other law enforcement agencies.
You don't look like a Peckerwood.
Today that they've taken down dozens of members of the notorious white supremacist gang, the Peckerwoods. The gang is based out of the San Fernando Valley. 29 federal arrest warrants were served this morning. 68 members of the gang were indicted on charges ranging from gun violations to identity theft.
It appears, however, that the business of hate was not enough for them. Their criminal activity took on different forms. Driven by greed, as alleged today, they engaged in drug distribution, multiple fraud schemes, and firearms offenses.
I mean, I like drug distribution.
42 of the 68 gang members indicted are now in custody. The remaining 26 are fugitives. The Peckerwoods, according to federal law enforcement, have aligned themselves with the Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia prison gangs.
What we wanted to do through this investigation was neutralize this threat as quickly as possible. So as I said, we're not going to wait around for a tragedy to occur. We're going to take action right away. And in order to do that, we use every tool in our federal toolbox to address that. And that's what we've done today.
Again, 42 of the 68 indicted are in custody. They're still looking for the other 26. The sentences, if convicted on the charges, range from as low as 10 years to life in prison.
Oh, I thought he was going to say it again. The Peckerwoods. I would have enjoyed saying that on the air. That would have been one of the highlights of my life. Let's go to Utah, where a woman was killed in a crash. Didn't this happen the other day, or is this a follow-up on the story that we covered? Woman killed at Valley Fair Mall during a police pursuit. It was posted a day ago. When did we do that story? Do you guys remember that? The woman ran from police. She had a kid in the car. I don't think we did that last night, so hopefully this is an update.
9 a.m., officers were patrolling the area near Fairborn Station. Police say they came across a man who was smoking marijuana at a park and stopped to talk to him. During that interaction, he fled on foot. He ran across the UTA area through the City Hall parking lot.
He came across some electrical workers who were outside of their work truck, and he jumped into that work truck and stole it.
Police say as the man drove off with the truck, he hit one of the workers. That worker had minor...
Okay, so this is the dude that led police in the chase. The chase had nothing to do with the woman. I guess the woman was killed incidentally in the chase.
Truck and stole it.
Police say as the man drove off with the truck, he hit one of the workers. That worker had minor injuries. At some point, the suspect turned into the mall parking lot and officers lost sight of him.
A short time later, there were some officers in the neighborhood that's south of the mall Costco area, and they saw the vehicle pulled over to the side of the road. The suspect did go ahead and start to flee again and rammed into two police vehicles.
The man drove off again and headed towards a small one-way road near 215.
He came into contact with a driver who was coming the opposite direction, hit that vehicle head on, killing the woman inside of that vehicle. She was a 52-year-old from Salt Lake City.
Police say the suspect is being interviewed by detectives. His motives for allegedly fleeing and stealing the vehicle are still unclear.
You're looking at someone making a choice to do something illegal, to behave in a way that endangers the public. That's very concerning, and that's what we have here. And as a result of this suspect's behavior, we now have a woman who has died, and that's tragic.
In West Valley.
That's more fun. Yeah, let him smoke his joint. The cops harassing a man who was just smoking a joint. Pause that. I'm not sure where this is. Washington. This is in Washington. We're going to Washington State. So authorities are urging the public not to approach an escaped sexually violent predator. I want to make sure all my Washington peeps are safe. As soon as the video cooperates with me.
Blevins, he was convicted of assault back in 2017. Prior to that, 65 other arrests and 5 felony convictions. And police are warning, if you see this man, do not approach him and call 911. This is the last place 33-year-old Damian Blevins' GPS monitor was tracked to, the King Street station in downtown Seattle, before DOC officials say the convicted sexual predator cut off his ankle monitor.
I believe it was for something related either to looking for a job, maybe job fair or interview of some kind.
DOC officials say Blevins was on a pre-approved outing and living at a less restrictive alternative facility in Tukwila.
The point of the program is it's been around for decades and better helps people who meet this criteria get adjusted, get the treatment they need before they're released to society.
Blevins is 6 feet tall and weighs 270 pounds. According to court documents, he was most recently convicted of second-degree assault in 2017. And then transferred to McNeil Island, home of the state's most violent sexual predators. Documents state Blevin brutally attacked the victim, a woman he barely knew, raped her multiple times while holding a knife, and threatened to slit her throat before he stole bank checks and money.
This appears to be the first time, at least in recent memory, that someone has cut off the monitors. That's why we want to get the word out to the public, hopefully track him down as quickly as possible.
And right now, the Department of Corrections does not know where he could have gone. Now, if you see him again, do not approach him. Instead, you should call their headquarters number. That number is 360-480-2696. Live in Seattle, Hannah Knowles, Como News.
Thanks, Hannah. Appreciate you and your reporting. That man was pretty sick. Totally sounds like it. Remember yesterday we did the story about the shooting? Here that we heard from 2 different sets of kids. They gave us the description of what happened. Now we have video. There's video of the shooting.
First at 6 tonight, new video of that man with a gun in a shootout with police on 190 in Worcester. Hello, everyone. I'm Glenn Jones.
And I'm Priscilla Casper. This all started with a shooting in a nearby neighborhood. Police first responding to Harold Road, where a man was found shot. He later died. And a short time later, police located the suspected shooter trying to carjack drivers on 190. He ultimately shot himself.
NBC 10's Darren Botello spoke with people
But did he live?
Who saw the gunman. He joins us live now from Worcester with what they had to say. Darren.
Well, Glenn and Priscilla were told those kids saw the suspected gunman as they were getting off the school bus. A really shocking scene for them. And then police say that gunman also killed another person before taking off to the highway, then scaring drivers. Wild new video we've obtained shows who police say is Felix Rivera, armed, shutting down 190 in Worcester on Wednesday as he tried to carjack drivers.
There's so many gunshots, so we were worried it was going to go through the car.
Rivera trapped in traffic, taking his own life, police say, in the middle of this busy highway.
He did?
Police say Rivera shot and killed another man, Yubara Perez, here on Herald.
I was wondering about that because from the description of the witnesses, it sounded like he shot himself. But then they said he was taken into custody, so I was unclear about what happened to him last night.
As he tried to carjack drivers.
There's so many gunshots, so we were worried it was going to go through the car.
Rivera trapped in traffic, taking his own life, police say, in the middle of this busy highway. Police say Rivera shot and killed another man, Yubara Perez, here on Herald Road before running to the nearby interstate at about 2:30 in the afternoon. Around the same time, kids were getting off a school bus. The mother of 2 of those students recounting the traumatic sight.
They saw the guy and they heard the gunshots and instinct kicked in and they booked it as fast as they could. To think that they were that close, like mere steps from the person that had done that.
Earlier on Thursday, you could still see investigators in the driveway and the yellow crime scene tape on this property. Less than 24 hours after police got the call about shots fired, finding Perez with multiple wounds.
When I first heard the pops, I kind of thought it must be some kids making noise or something. Then you hear.
Fair enough, Bill. Technically, yes.
It's scary. 10, 15 cop cars came flying by.
Investigators say they were on the scene of the shooting here when they found Rivera acting suspiciously. That's when they say Rivera shot at authorities the first time, then fleeing to the highway surrounded by police.
We were really scared because he was
Worcester, Mass.
shooting at him, and we were really worried it would hit my car.
And Glenn and Priscilla, luckily we're told no investigators or
happened yesterday afternoon.
Any of this. Live tonight in Worcester, Darren Botello, NBC 10 Boston.
Oh shit.
Drew, we are getting our first look at new video showing the moment that these two men were crashed into by speeding Warren police officers. Both men died in the crash, and many people, including their family, are wondering what were those officers doing and why were they driving so fast? That's the question that a Macomb Sheriff's investigation is working to answer. Sean Lay working the story and has some answers to those questions. Sean?
We did answer those questions. We're told the sheriff's investigation could take a month or more, but everyone wants to know. We stood right here, Karen, and asked Warren Police on Monday, with the cars still out here, were the officers responding to something? If so, what? And if they were responding to an emergency, why weren't they having their lights and sirens on if they were driving that high rate of speed? We're going to break down those answers for you. Here, all of this happened on Shaner at Sherwood at 5 Monday morning. Two men making a turn onto their own street. They're in a Dodge Durango. It took a direct hit from the Warren officer driving a Warren police SUV. This crash killed the men in the Durango, Cedric Hayden and DeJuan Pettis. They were on their way home. Now, here is new video of what happened here. It's just a streak on your screen. It's really hard to tell because the speed here is so fast. On the left is the officer. If you watch closely, on the right is that approaching Durango. We're not going to show you the impact of this.
Why not?
It's too upsetting for the families. Now, Warren police in their dispatch audio have the answers that they were responding to a be on the lookout call for a stolen Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Fuel for a flock hit for a stolen vehicle, the black Jeep Grand Cherokee, Shaner and 10 Mile. Southbound Shaner from 10 Mile were still stolen out of Sterling Heights. There was also 2 M&P shield guns in the vehicle that were entered as stolen as well.
New information if you listen closely. The dispatcher is saying be on the lookout for a stolen Grand Cherokee, Jeep Grand Cherokee, stolen out of Sterling Heights, and the person reported it stolen said there's 2 handguns in there. The officers go back on the radio and say they're going to respond to that, and an instant later there is this crash. So we know what they were doing, responding to a be on the lookout. Why the lights and sirens were not on, that is still a mystery at this point. Much more. Karen, coming up.
Did they peel out?
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sean. We'll check back.
Why were they racing to get there? We're totally doing that here in a second. This is going back to Washington. A sex toy prank landed a Mercer Island officer in hot water. What? Yeah, that's a sex toy prank.
You're looking at the wife of a police officer assaulting a man outside a Fall City bar. The attack caught on surveillance cameras. But this turned into so much more. That woman was arrested, and the officer found himself in hot water after he flashed his badge, lied during a traffic stop, and then tried to pull rank to get his wife released from jail.
What?
Into an investigation that uncovered additional misdeeds by that police officer, including an on-the-clock sex toy prank.
That officer has been demoted, but he's not out of the woods just yet.
Demoted?
Reports he could lose his badge altogether as the state agency is now looking into this situation.
I've never seen anything like this ever, actually.
Like most dive bars, the Last Frontier Saloon could tell some stories. Andrew Goodman, a regular, can attest.
It went 0 to 60 in like 5 seconds.
There are few like what was captured on surveillance video last October. This is Goodman being kicked by Jennifer Rogenkamp. The guy next to her is her husband, Mercer Island Police Sergeant Todd Rogenkamp. And if the tuxedo tee didn't tip you off, he's not on official duty. He left a wedding and hit this Fall City bar with friends. But when
the tuxedo t-shirt,
when the doors closed, the Rogenkamps found themselves on the rocks with employees outside. Turns out, Mrs. Rogenkamp had left her phone inside, so Mr. Rogenkamp demanded that they open back up.
This badge says I can get in the building. This is verbatim what he said.
That moment appears here on video. The flashing of his badge, just the beginning of his problems. Shortly after that, a kick, an attempted slap, a fall, and yet another kick came from Mrs. Rogenkamp.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Leading Goodman to call the cops on a cop.
Challenged my friend and I to fight because he knew the rule of racial combat in the state of Washington, which we both declined.
To say awkward would be an understatement.
Justin McMartin is Goodman's friend. He saw the whole ordeal go down.
I don't know how else to describe it. It was just weird.
Amazing.
During that call, Rogenkamp jumped in the back seat of a truck and drove off with another couple. But King County deputies caught up and pulled them over on eastbound I-90. But things only escalated. Deputies say Todd was egging on his friend who was driving the vehicle to take off because of the police pursuit laws. They also say he lied about seeing the assault, calling the deputy a amateur. When asked about flashing his badge, he claimed to be a firefighter, which he isn't. The deputy wrote the Rogenkamps were, quote, clearly inebriated, as displayed by their thick, slurred speech, heavy eyelids, and uncoordinated movements.
Attempted slap.
Mrs. Rogenkamp in the King County Jail in Seattle on an assault charge. Mr. Rogenkamp's boss at the time, Mercer Island Police Chief Ed Holmes, would later write that he was concerned that Rogenkamp drove himself to the jail within 1 hour of being observed by King County deputies as very intoxicated. According to King County jail staff, at roughly 3 a.m., Rogenkamp demanded his wife be released from the facility. But when staff told him he'd have to wait until 7 a.m. to post his wife's bail, he threatened to block the Sally Port, the controlled entry point. Staff documented him saying, quote, I'm going to sit here and block all the cops coming in. Ultimately, he decided not to block the entrance. And after Mrs. Rogenkamp was bonded out of jail, prosecutors never charged her with a crime. But all of it, the jail, the combative traffic stop, not to mention him flashing his badge, it added up to 9 ethical rules breached, per the Mercer Island internal investigation.
He just got demoted.
Investigators from Washington's Criminal Justice Training Commission are working to determine whether they'll decertify Rogenkamp, meaning that badge he was flashing would be taken away.
I don't want to speculate like what kind of officer he would be on duty, but if this is off-duty behavior, it makes other officers look bad. It's a badge, not a crown.
The investigation also uncovered text messages and pictures of a phallic sex toy. Turns out, while on the clock as the watch commander, he attached a sex toy to his subordinate officer's cruiser just 7 days prior to the incident in Fall City. An investigator writing,
well, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Drive around the community performing patrol duties in said vehicle for several hours without
He put a suction dildo on the side of a car and let the other cop ride around for hours with it. Amazing. I love it. Nah, that's the best thing he did here.
Rogenkamp, meaning that badge he was flashing would be taken away.
I don't want to speculate like what kind of officer he would be on duty, but if this is off-duty behavior, it makes other officers look bad. It's a badge, not a crown.
The investigation also uncovered text messages and pictures of a phallic sex toy. Turns out, while on the clock as the watch commander, he attached a sex toy to his subordinate officer's cruiser just 7 days prior to the incident in Fall City. An investigator writing, you then let him drive around the community performing patrol duties in said vehicle for several hours without him knowing the sex toy was attached. Termination was recommended, but per records obtained by Fox 13, Rogenkamp's union argued and succeeded for a lesser punishment, a demotion. As a result of all this, Sergeant Rogenkamp would eventually become Officer Rogenkamp. Now, our team reached out to the Rogenkamp family multiple times via text and phone call through the number that they listed on her bail documents. We've yet to hear back. The union has also not responded, but the current police chief of Mercer Island tells us in part, quote, MIPD took immediate action related to this incident, and while we aren't able to publicly discuss the details of personnel processes, corrective action was taken. The police chief submitted the case to the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission for their certification review process. Now, that last part may be the most important here. CJTC does have the ability to pull an officer's certification, essentially taking Rogenkamp's badge and his ability to be an officer anywhere in our state. Of course, we'll be following,
do that.
And as we learn more, we'll update you.
So I would assume it's sexual assault if the cop drives by and smacks somebody with the dildo. That cop deserves a titty slap.
A titty slap!
Come on now. I do not trust his wife. His wife does not get to perform the titty slap because I don't think she can land it. God damn, let's do that. There's so much good shit. I'm never going to get out of here. I am so tired. It's been such a long week. There's so much good shit. And we've been doing so many debates, we haven't got a chance to find out what that news be doing. Teen in a runaway SUV saved by crashing into a cop car.
Nightmare. Your car will not stop even when you hit the brakes and actually keeps going faster and faster. This teen says it happened to him. He found himself going 113 miles an hour with no way of stopping. He says he thought he was going to die. Megan Alexander has the story.
A car is about to speed by. The driver is going more than 100 miles an hour, but the 18-year-old kid behind the wheel isn't being reckless. He says he can't get his SUV to stop or even slow down. He called his mom, who alerted police.
This is going to sound absolutely crazy. My son is driving the car, and he is going down County 17, can't get the car to slow down or stop, and he's going about 80 miles an hour.
Minnesota State Trooper Zach Groover tried to catch up to the driver, Sam Dutcher.
It was kind of that holy crap. He's going a lot faster than dispatch said he was. We're on a road that the speed limit's 55, so people aren't expecting a vehicle to be coming down the road at them at 113 miles an hour.
Sam
113,
including shutting off the engine and pulling on the emergency brake. And get this, the road was about to come to an end and turn into a narrow dirt path. They had to stop Sam before it was too late.
Watching an 18-year-old hit a dirt road at 113 miles an hour, it's not going to end well.
They hatched a plan to get in front of Sam's Honda SUV.
So I ended up pulling my squad in front of him and just having him essentially rear end me and then use my squad brakes to slow him down to a stop. It was a pretty good jolt once he hit me.
You can hear Trooper Groover let out a huge sigh of relief that the crisis was over.
Oh, that hit hard.
We spoke to Sam and his mom, Catherine, today. Did you think he was going to die?
My initial thought was he was going to die because
the accelerator gets
stuck.
stuck.
We were going to stop the car.
The family does not know what caused the car to accelerate. Honda issued this statement. We are grateful that the customer is safe. We cannot speculate about the issue experienced by the customer without a detailed inspection of the vehicle. The vehicle is now at a Honda dealership undergoing evaluation. Meanwhile, Sam is expressing sincere thanks for the trooper's bravery. Is this officer a hero? The one that got you to slow down?
Yes.
That's probably it, Flash. That's the most common thing that happens.
Auto mechanic.
Floor mat gets caught underneath, like rolls up, stops you from being able to brake. You mentioned Teslas, as we're talking about Teslas. Tesla having to recall the Cybertruck for the 5th time in a year.
Forget a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
It drives great, man. It drives awesome. That's I love it.
This is the most eye-catching vehicle you'll see on America's roads today. Love it or hate it, Tesla's Cybertruck, described by CEO Elon Musk as what Blade Runner would have driven, is the latest status symbol on 4 wheels. With stars from Kim Kardashian to Pharrell, Lady Gaga, all getting behind the
Lady Gaga.
appeal.
As ridiculous as the Cybertruck may look, it gives it a definite cool factor.
The Cybertruck was first introduced as a futuristic concept car back in 2019. Late last year, but a string of safety issues led to 5 recalls in just 1 year. The latest, a problem with the rear view camera, which, according to safety officials, took up to 8 seconds to boot up once it shifted into reverse. For context, the government says that needs to happen within 2 seconds. The recall notice says the delay could increase the risk of a collision. The other recalls, failing windshield wipers, hard to read warning lights, parts literally falling off, and then the issue with the car's accelerator.
This slid up.
A viral video shows the pedal can get stuck to the floor once it's pushed all the way down. Tesla markets the Cybertruck as a total workhorse, competing against the likes of other major brand pickups. Tesla even boasts a towing capacity, the equivalent, it says, of an average African elephant. But some experts say this isn't the truck you want to show up in to a job site.
I can't see many construction workers swapping their F-150s or their Silverados or their Rams for a Cybertruck, unless you want to make a big statement.
This latest recall over the rear view camera now resolved, Tesla says, via a software update sent out to nearly 30,000 Cybertruck owners. We asked Tesla about these safety issues, but haven't heard back. But while the Cybertruck might be great at turning heads, some experts say that's all it's good for.
Does a world Cybertruck? No. Would it be a more boring place without it? Probably.
Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Thanks for watching.
Shut up, Lester. Insane. Well, since we're still doing vehicle stories, let's go to this one. I didn't prepare tonight. I'm just kind of winging it. I wasn't even going to stay on much longer past the debate, but you know me. I get going. I get on a roll, and there's so much shit to talk about. A truck, don't think it was a Cybertruck, crashed into the side of a daycare center. This happened in Phoenix. Barksaw, good evening.
Crashes right into the side of a daycare, happened in Glendale.
Yeah, the driver and 3
Glendale
in that truck taken to the hospital. Danielle Miller has details from the scene this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. A very scary morning here at the American Child Care Center. It is 51st Avenue and Butler here in Glendale. You can see this white truck smashed into the side of it. According to the Glendale Police Department, this white truck was involved in an initial crash with another truck, and that is when this driver then kind of lost control, leading to this parking lot here and eventually crashing into the daycare center. The building did have to be evacuated, but the good news here, no one inside was hurt at the time. We do know that it was an adult man driving this white truck. He had 3 children inside of the truck. All of them were okay as well. The secondary driver of a red truck that was involved in that initial crash, that is an 80-year-old man. He is also okay. Everybody very thankful that no one was hurt.
There was about 15 kids and 5 adults. Nobody injured inside the building, but they're getting evacuated because it's believed that the building may be structurally damaged, and they don't want to make sure nobody gets hurt.
And the daycare center is closed today. It's possibly going to be closed for a few other additional days as well. The fire department here in Glendale just wants to make sure the building is structurally sound before anyone goes back inside.
I guess since we're in Arizona, let's keep it in Arizona. 2 people have been shot at a Phoenix home. The suspect's apparently still at large as of a few hours ago.
Fox 10 News Alert here. Police investigating a shooting call near 40th Street and Baseline.
Danielle Miller just arriving on scene. Danielle, what can you tell us?
Yeah, still a very active scene out here. We have several Phoenix police officers still here investigating, but we just learned new information from the Phoenix Police Department. They tell us that this was called out as a shooting call. 2 men were shot here. They were transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. We do know that the suspect is still on the loose at this time, but the Phoenix Police Department telling us that they have a good idea of who this person is, so they do not believe there is any threat to the local community right here. There is some schools here in the area. Those are not placed on lockdown right now. So Phoenix police continuing their investigation. Once again, 2 men transported to the hospital, non-life-threatening injuries. And the Phoenix Police Department also telling us that this is a very known house to them. They have been here several times. They were just here a month and a half ago.
Looks like a crack house.
Similar situation out here. So still working to see if they can find that suspect and get details about that. But other than that, there is no threat to the community, according to the Phoenix Police Department at this time.
But I really shouldn't discriminate, should I? I mean, I don't know the story behind the house. What is going on in Arizona? We've got video of 2 armed robbers caught on camera.
A Valley family awakened in the middle of the night to a horrifying sight as masked thieves armed with an AK-47 steal their truck.
Yeah, you can see them right here. There's someone inside.
Nice truck.
There's someone right here with this gun. I mean, that's terrifying. They soon found out, too, they're not alone. Another family in the same neighborhood had their truck stolen minutes later. Fox 10's Nicole Christine joins us live tonight from Waddell with the exclusive story. Nicole.
Yeah, good evening, John and Christina. Really terrifying for some of these residents. And these thieves seem to be using a relay device of sorts. It can amplify the wireless.
Don't play fair. Good evening.
Even from your home, and then it can use that signal to unlock the vehicle. We spoke to one person today who says he's frustrated and unnerved, as you can imagine, from what he saw on his security footage from overnight.
Shocked. I can't believe this happened to me.
Michael Florent woke up to an urgent message. Someone was inside his truck.
I woke up this morning to an alert on my phone that my truck had been opened without the key. So I told my wife. She said, well, I just saw an alert on the neighborhood social media that someone had their white truck stolen. So I came out, opened my garage door, and my truck was gone.
Florent checked his Ring camera footage and saw 4 people in masks pull up in a white Camaro, armed to the teeth.
The Camaro.
And the one who disabled the horn is the one that had the AK-47 pointing in this direction in case I were to come out. They didn't care if they got caught, didn't care they were on camera. The camera was right above where they were. The lights, they were, lit up, filmed the whole time. They were hooded, gloves, the whole works.
10 minutes after taking Michael's truck, thieves stole a white truck from a nearby home. But in a video, you can see it driving away with a white Camaro following closely behind. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office confirmed they're investigating the theft. And while Florent is not overly optimistic his truck will turn up, he says he wants other residents to be warned of this trend.
I really wish that I had purchased a, aftermarket tracking device. So I recommend everyone do that because that's not something they would look for.
Florent also gave advice to neighbors who might want to take matters into their own hands and confront the thieves.
If you have video footage and you see it happening, just make sure you're recording it, and it's not worth it, honestly. It's just stuff.
Now you can store your key
what a reasonable guy.
Faraway bag, or you can use a physical steering wheel lock. Those are a couple of ways that you can protect your car from theft. And it's also important to just stay up to date with how technology can be used to help people steal your vehicle. Reporting live tonight in Waddell, Nicole Christine, Fox 10 News.
Insane. Go to Queens, where a man with a rifle tried to rob a bakery. I guess he needed some baked goods. I feel like there's other ways you could go about it.
5 o'clock news.
Well, a brazen thief caught on camera on Long Island. He walks in and then out with a package in just a matter of seconds. What authorities are saying about the possibility that this all was planned ahead.
But first, more stunning video, this time out of Queens. Police are on the hunt for this man who used a rifle in an armed robbery.
All right, that suspect making no effort to conceal the massive weapon. Richard Giacomo
robbed a bakery. The jokes just kind of write themselves, don't they?
Woodhaven section of Queens. Richard Giacobas, Fox 5 News.
You know, I think I know what would make places safer. You got a place like this bakery that is getting robbed. What would make it safer is to install an ammunition vending machine inside of the bakery. Then it can be much safer. That's exactly what everyone needs. Access to ammunition.
Cereal, eggs, and now in rural grocery stores across the country, something new is popping up. So-called bullet vending machines.
People hear vending machine and ammo, and in their mind they're seeing, an old style with the ones with the turns and it's going to drop a candy bar or a bag of chips to the bottom. We don't call these vending machines, we call them automated retail machines.
Grant Majors is the man behind the automated retail machines found in 8 stores across Alabama, Oklahoma, Colorado, and where we are in Canyon Lake, Texas.
Online, there's really no regulation whatsoever. We verify an ID 100% every transaction.
The minimum age to buy any ammo on Majors machines is 21, higher than
like a Fed kiosk.
18. Guardrails that he says could reduce tragedies.
The average age of school shooting is about 17 years old. Right, the gentleman that attempted assassination of Donald Trump was 20. They could not have bought from our machines.
So I have my ID and my credit card, and we are going to try to buy some bullets here. After acknowledging I was over 21 and not in distress, I chose my bullets.
And not in distress.
Around, and it was time to check out. I have braids now. I didn't have braids in my ID picture, so we'll see if it works. Then I stepped into the camera's view and followed the instructions. Okay, it worked. And my bullets are vending. So, yep. Sure enough, I was able to buy.
God bless America.
I'm licensed to carry. I'm not sure I would agree with just anybody being able to walk in and buy something like a Dr. Pepper, but
these women not swayed by the machine's safeguards. You're supposed to scan your ID when you use it, and it's supposed to make sure you're 21, and he says it's super secure.
And when I was growing up, you were supposed to be 21 when you bought booze, but I was in a bar every weekend.
What do you say to those folks who see human oversight in this process?
That woman was cool. I'd party with her.
In the industry, period. If you're buying online, there's no human oversight. At the store level, if you have a clerk checking someone out, are they capable of just looking at a person and knowing their mental state?
The reaction has been mixed. We found a divide along gender lines.
Heck, to be honest, it's probably a little more regulated than buying it over the counter.
As long as it's legal, why not?
So here's the grocery store that machine is in, and let's take a little walk. About 25 steps away, there's the school. Why here?
The store owners and the managers wanted it here, for one. I mean, they wanted it here. There's a hardware store right across the street from the school that sells ammo. It's sold ammo there forever and a much less safe capacity.
Ultimately, it may be up to the customers to decide whether these machines stay or go. In Tuscaloosa, one was removed amid public outcry. Major says he took it out due to low sales. Do you see a time in which we could see these in a big city like a Houston or a Dallas or even a New York or an LA?
I don't foresee a time when we'd put them like in an inner city environment. We're clearly not out there trying to put one in every corner. I mean, that's not the idea of our business.
What is the idea?
We really did see a safer opportunity to change the ammo industry. We see an opportunity to use technology to take a social responsibility direction with the selling ammunition, but protecting the Second Amendment for law-abiding gun owners that, have good intention.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News.
Wild. Shut up, Lester.
Stay updated about breaking news and top.
As soon as I heard NBC News, I knew it was coming. All right, now is tonight's edition of What the Fuck is Going On in Fort Worth? No, I want the whole thing. All of a clip here because we got video of it. Texas is gonna catch Texas. Man seriously injured after falling into abandoned grain silo.
It is without its soaring silos. The city grew up around them, but this is what happens when history,
from a firefighter's perspective,
is neglected.
We don't like abandoned buildings.
Craig Trojic says it took special equipment and more than 2 hours for firefighters to rescue this man early Thursday morning. It's not clear why the man was in the old Kimball Milling Company grain elevator, but he fell and broke his leg. Inside,
a lot of trash. You've got a lot of drug paraphernalia, dirty needles, wild animals that are living in there.
It's the same filth firefighters have found at the silos 5 minutes south. People who live in that structure's shadow have begged for its demolition, a plea that grew louder after a teenager fell and died there in 2016.
If they're going to knock it down, knock it down. Don't wait another 100 years. I mean, that building's coming down by itself.
George Martinez will get his wish. The city plans to tear down the building in the coming months after trying but failing to contact its owner for 8 years.
What?
Turns out the same elusive entity also owns the Kimball silos.
Probably looking at about 100 feet.
Trojic did not call for their demolition.
You don't even like.
They haven't hosted as many.
He isn't alive anymore.
Their sibling in Worth Heights, but he says these silos do seem to invite exploration.
You don't want to lose your history, but when it gets to the point if there could be possibly lives at stake because of that, there's some tough decisions that need to be made.
But that's nothing new in an old city. In Fort Worth, I'm Matt Houston.
All right, I went back and forth on it. Let's, I need to get out of here. I'm tired. I'm hungry. Fuck it. Let's do a police chase. Earlier today in LA.
The Sheriff's Department is canceling, so they're letting it go. So there's not going to be anyone behind it.
Is that a Corvette?
It is advised, though, and they can take it if they want it.
No, Drake, we've done them in Utah. We've done...
we're Beverly Hills.
Boston. The majority of them are in LA. That's a Camaro. Camaro. Here's the thing is, like, if you're going to get in a police chase...
Annabelle, we're eastbound on Olympic.
Probably shouldn't do it in that noticeable of a color.
That was in pursuit. Prior to that, though, it was Gardena police, and the one on this is a stolen vehicle. Hard to miss one. Bright blue.
I'm glad you love it, Lenny.
And unknown number of occupants.
Me too. I love police chases. This happened earlier today.
From Gardena, made its way northbound on the 405 freeway, exited at Santa Monica.
Sometimes I have to go and pull from the past. And they have it. They're
like this
years ago that I have in the reservoir.
Streets where we find
earlier today.
Continuing eastbound on Olympic. What I am hearing though is that the Sheriff's Department is.
It is a Camaro. I've confirmed.
At this point, because it has gotten too dangerous, but they have advised the LAPD. So the LAPD would have the option of picking up the pursuit if they choose to do so, but it normally goes through a chain of command issue. They have to get permission from the.
Guess we should get more high, shall we?
At this point, LAPD not behind it either, but we'll continue to monitor the vehicle.
Oh, this is awesome!
Dangerous driving that is taking place here through the Beverly Hills.
Dangerous driving indeed. What we come for.
Is the airship still here, Jim? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I made it easy to spot because it's that bright blue color, but
it seriously is the worst
from our assignment desk
vehicle to get in a chase with police with.
Over it. At this point, the sheriff's ship is still here, and it's more of an officer safety issue.
I feel like I have a car in my Gran Turismo garage that's that color. But I can't remember what it is.
Is making its way through their city if they choose to get behind the vehicle. At this point, no units directly behind it. They may still be trying to work their way back over here, but we're we're entering mid-city, so we're definitely now in LAPD.
A Mercedes is dark
Again,
purple.
only the,
My Porsche is
but no ground units because those ground units
a hunter
have,
green.
what's called a 1022, so it means that they have canceled and will not be seen behind the car, simply because it's too dangerous at this point.
My Ferrari's like a deep
they'll drive a
red.
little bit more normally, more calmly. They'll think they're no longer being pursued. Perhaps they'll even pull over and just try to ditch the car. That would really be the best option at this point, considering some of the dangerous maneuvers that we've seen. Annabelle?
Rapid Blue. That's the name of the color from the manufacturer. I have a Celica that's like color change I really like. It's not a bad looking car, you just don't want to get into a police chase with it. That's what I'm saying. I think I have a car that's that color. Had a car because, like, you know, you're willing and dealing on Gran Turismo.
The pursuit simply got too dangerous.
Gotta sell some shit off to buy new shit.
Very erratically at high speeds. When he was on the freeway, he was full speed on that northbound 405 to get us all the way from Gardena up to West LA in a matter of about 10 minutes. But that's where he encountered some traffic and decided to get off the freeway on Santa Monica Boulevard. But made his way.
Go ahead, get up on the curb, man.
A little bit of traffic, so we'll see what he does. Again, at this point, this driver doesn't even know.
One up, tip one back.
Because he can't see the airship overhead. It is the sheriff's helicopter overhead. I'm going to take this opportunity, though, to zoom in here a little bit. I think that window might be down. Might give us an opportunity to look at the driver. Yep, definitely window is down. Hard to tell, though, from my vantage point if it is a man or a woman, but does seem very fidgety. Looks like perhaps doing something to his or her cell phone, perhaps. That always makes officers nervous, though, when they see drivers moving around that much, because they don't know what this person could possibly be reaching for. It's unknown if this person could be armed in any way. It's also unknown how this person got control of this vehicle. Was it something like
was it stolen?
Carjacking, or was it simply a crime of opportunity where the vehicle was left running or abandoned, and then this person jumped in and took it? It's also unclear how long they've been driving this stolen car. But again, this was originally out of Gardena.
Red light was on the wrong side of the
sheriff's
road.
Helicopter got overhead, tracked the vehicle on that northbound 405 freeway until he exited at Santa Monica Boulevard, where we've been on surface streets ever since. We're still continuing here eastbound on Olympic Boulevard, coming through Mid-City. We're about to enter the Mid-Wilshire area here. At this point, only the sheriff's helicopter is overhead. There's no ground units directly behind it. There's the helicopter.
You guys have not ever watched the chase with us. The LAPD tends to hang back.
Thank you, Jim. And so
they actually do a really good job with chases. The LAPD is good when the cameras are on them and they know the cameras are watching.
LAPD air units as well. No ground units.
Proving that cops can do the right thing. They know how to do the right thing. Because honestly, I'm not even thinking of one in LA where, like, I can say the cops
but what my pilot Jim is hearing from the police air units overhead,
grossly negligent or anything. They've done a really good job.
18 to 20 years old.
They track them with a helicopter. They lay back. They'll plan ahead and kind of set traps for them in areas where there's not civilians.
Being in that stolen car may also be wanted now for assault with a deadly weapon on a peace officer. So how that usually works is that vehicle was likely the weapon.
So he's apparently assaulted a cop.
Officers in some way. So again, continuing.
Case has everything already.
At Branson. And Annabelle, if you could just take it for a second, I just need to talk to our assignment desk.
It's a kid, Dougie.
From the chopper, the map is
also, we have seen other suspects die in chases in other municipalities. I can't remember anyone dying in an LAPD chase or a California chase. Oh, a young punk. He's a teenager. I see what you mean by kid. Yeah,
I'm ready, guys. Go ahead.
The malleable definition. Zoom, zoom. This is really dangerous. I can't believe that. That's not a lane. He was like in the access lane or something for the stores.
Okay, thank you.
I was amazed he had an open lane like that.
So, Annabelle, I was just getting some new...
Oh no, come back to us.
Pasando muy rápido por esta calle en la zona de Mid City. En estos momentos, el departamento del sheriff que estaba llevando a cabo esta persecución, pues
We went to the Spanish feed.
Ahí exactamente en la calle, solamente está siguiendo a este carro a través del helicóptero, pero vea nada más las maniobras tan peligrosas que está realizando, escurriéndose prácticamente.
I don't speak Spanish, but it sounds like they're having a good time.
A esta hora de la tarde son las 3:38, hora pico. Exactamente no lo puedo decir qué calle es, así que por favor voy a pedirle aquí que nos avisen exactamente qué calle es, pero esto es ya entrando al área de Mid City, así que posiblemente la policía de Los Ángeles, LAPD, tome esta persecución en los próximos minutos y empiece a seguir a ese vehículo azul reportado como robado, así que definitivamente muy preocupante. Vean nada más cómo pasa tan rápido junto a estos vehículos que están esperando.
I've taken Spanish, I've taken French, I can't speak either.
Entrando a esta zona que parece bastante residencial, a esta hora de la tarde surge la preocupación.
I took like 10 years of piano lessons. I can't play fucking piano.
Sin embargo, el vehículo está avanzando tratando pues de quizás evitar las autoridades, aunque como les digo, lo que tenemos reportado y confirmado es que en este momento no lo están siguiendo las patrullas.
That means very rapid. I know that. I know, like, you know.
Bueno, vamos a seguir, por supuesto, esta información ahora en Telemundo 52 en las pantallas.
Never learned to read.
Nuestras plataformas digitales, pero vamos a seguir reportando a nuestras plataformas digitales, pero también en Telemundo 52 y también en telemundo52.com. Les repito la información que tenemos, que es preliminar hasta el momento. Este vehículo azul aparentemente robado está siendo ahora perseguido por las autoridades, pero lo último que tenemos de información es que
like a gnat or something just smacked me right in the face.
Este vehículo, por la seguridad, por esas maniobras tan peligrosas, simplemente estaban monitoreando lo que está haciendo, pero usted puede ver que es muy preocupante la forma como está avanzando de un lado hacia otro.
Azul is blue.
Va a ser una derecha, reduce la velocidad y continúa. Justamente había una patrulla ahí y bueno, aquí está entrando, prácticamente se mete hacia el otro lado.
Very close.
Y está avanzando tan rápido que tan solo un error muy minucioso podría causar un accidente o que ese vehículo se impacte.
In the center lane on the other side of the road.
Lo que está pasando, estamos
all over the place.
Esperando aquí la confirmación.
God damn! Almost hits a pedestrian.
En sentido contrario.
I think she flipped him off.
Que pasan por ahí y tenemos la información también de que por lo menos habrían 2 personas a bordo, el conductor o conductora y una persona más, pero esa información pues todavía no está confirmada. Es lo que tenemos hasta el momento aquí en Telemundo 52. Esta persecución que inició en Gardena se encuentra ahora en Mid City. Vamos a darle las calles ya en los próximos minutos para que usted se haga una idea, pero usted puede ver cómo el vehículo está evadiendo ahí. Mira, ahí nada más pasó junto a esos peatones como si nada.
What do you plan on doing, dude?
Este carro avanza tan rápido.
Yeah, some open road here.
Forma, pierde el control, pierde el control básicamente de su vehículo, puede impactarse, puede atropellar también a una persona y es muy peligroso. Aquí se vuelve a meter otra vez en sentido contrario, llega a la intersección, está obstruyendo el tráfico de esos vehículos muy
Vehículos.
We haven't heard anything about being armed or if there's other passengers. You might be able to look. I'm going to try to get in a tighter shot here in a second. Wow, look at that move.
Wait, is this Chris Christie now?
Down the double yellows. Again, wrong side of the road. We'll try to get a look inside the vehicle if we can, but he's going to have heavy traffic yet again, another signal. Nowhere to go. And again, a lot of people out on foot. Let's take a look inside the
Charger in front of him?
And hard to see it, but he's going to make a right-hand turn. This is going to be on Hoover, and the airship's still tracking, looking for the ground units. Let me come out real quick and see. There's just so much traffic, it's hard for those units to get behind it. Here comes the 10 freeway, and under the 10 freeway, we'll see if he tries to get onto the freeway.
Nope. Did he ditch it? Did he ditch it? Nope, nope.
Freeway.
Hitting the freeway now, eh? Looks like there's a lot of traffic. Does not look like that's going to be smooth sailing. But hey, what do I know? Look at that shit.
Oh, it's very dangerous. And now we're on the freeway. Here he is, eastbound 10 freeway, approaching the 110. And Anton, let's hold here.
Who's sailing on the shoulder, indeed.
Shoulder of the road, the center divider, actually. Now he's going to transition. It looks like he might be going, well, hang on. He's got some options here. But
kind of ran out of options. Whoop.
Yeah,
think I fit it in there.
Passenger in the vehicle. I got a hand out the window there, and
you
so
have
at least the driver and a passenger. I don't know if there's anybody in the back seat, but certainly a dangerous situation now on the freeways, and really just taking chances here, left and right. We looking like he's continuing.
The hell of a
committed to the
joyride.
Eastbound 10 freeway from the 110. So he's just going to have nothing but traffic as he approaches the
Seriously, where do you plan on going?
And that just poses more problems. He might get off here in the downtown LA area. We'll see if that happens. But using every avenue,
God damn,
driver using every bit of space on the freeway to get by.
Did he scrape it there?
We'll see what he does here as he comes up to an off ramp. He's got the gore point. He's committed to that off ramp, and now we'll be on surface streets yet again here in downtown LA.
Well, shit.
It's going to be. Yeah, it's going to put him off on...
the black and white he just went by, wasn't it?
And now, yeah, so now we're going into LAPD Noon Division. Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Side of the road, running a red light. Probably didn't even use his turn signal. Glad we got speedometer again.
He did. We're hearing that from the LAPD airship overhead, talking on their dispatch channel, saying that there was a collision with a CHP officer during that portion of the pursuit on the freeway, and continued on after hitting that officer. So that's considered assault with a deadly weapon, the car being the weapon on that police officer. So there's the stolen and the assault with a...
He just flip us off?
Charge now on this suspect.
You guys hand out for air.
All right, so we're
hunting. About 60 there. Back up to it.
Yes, that's exactly it, Lou. And here he goes, westbound turn back towards the 110 freeway. We're north of the 10 freeway at this point, and he's getting into the buildings. We're going to have to stay right over the top of him. He's going to come southbound here. This is going to be Main Street, so he's going to be a southbound turn from Main Street, and still no sight of LAPD officers on the...
You got to wonder about how accurate it is, but like, hey, at least it gives us the ballpark.
Under us. Sorry about the spinning. He's directly under us, but he's going to continue westbound. Yeah, don't want to make anybody sick, but yeah, there he goes. But narrow road here. Go ahead.
Here we go. Is that a motorcycle or just a regular bike? Is he in the bike lane? Some sort of motorized.
Absolutely. They will go into surveillance mode to keep an eye on it from the airship above. But in this situation, you know, the driver's driving so fast, going the opposite direction at times. It's very difficult for those ground units to try to get him in behind it and you know, get back into the pursuit of it. So they will likely just continue to track it. They've gone into the vehicles now in the central division of LAPD, so we're listening to that. The airship and the dispatcher is talking about the direction of travel of the vehicle. Here we are on Olympic again. He's been on Olympic before, but westbound this time. And look at this cross traffic. He's going to go right against the traffic, and he's going to go on that one-way southbound on Flower here. So trying to weave his way in and out. The problem for this driver is wherever he goes, there's traffic everywhere.
I'm totally making dinner just as soon as I get off of here, girl in the gray.
Coming at us. Oh.
Go make some French fries tonight.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
It's almost 11 p.m. for me.
Hoping for the best.
I had a baked potato. I don't have a lot right now because I got to order groceries tomorrow.
So, you know, it's just this driver.
Fill my clients on Fridays.
For the road he's on. We haven't seen him on the same street.
It was kind of poor this week.
But Olympic was further to the west when he was on that. But here we are in downtown LA.
Fox, I've not watched this one before. This was earlier today. It was just a few hours ago.
We don't know if it's a male driver or female driver at this point. But continuing here northbound.
Hate to disappoint you.
Under some.
But that could possibly happen.
On Olive here. And high speeds. Look at the speeds here. Terrible. Very dangerous.
I love making my own fries. I like making fry sauce. Probably also have fries in a salad. That's pretty much what I got right now. I had like a bunch of chicken breasts I cooked on a Dutch oven. Oh shit! Oh shit!
Parking structure.
Oh yes, this is the way to go. I finished off my chicken.
Olive and 8.
Tuesday night or something. No protein at the moment. My fry sauce is good. Hey, I'm not gonna hold on to a recipe. I'll tell you, it's like 1 part ketchup, 1 part mayonnaise. I don't know how to describe the Worcestershire. Probably like a tablespoon. Worcestershire sauce, and liberally add some chili powder. It's the best damn fry burger sauce you can make. Maybe trying to carjack something else. You're trying to leave on foot. Foot's probably the best. You can throw some paprika in there, Energy Flow. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not one to sit on recipes. I'll totally give you my recipes for things. You want my blue cheese dressing recipe? Because my God, it's good. It's so fucking simple. But you've also got to know, like, this is my friend. Like, my friend will ask me how to make things, and it's kind of hard for me to tell him because I don't do measurements. Remember, Justin don't do math.
You take your 33 and a third chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 and a third chance of winning.
Exactly, Energy Flow. I'm Appalachian cook. Good night, Lenny. Light one up, tip one back. Yeah, it's. I feel it. I know how much of shit you taste it. Like, oh, it needs more of this. You got your blue cheese. Like, I usually get a block of Boar's Head. I don't know about buying Boar's Head anymore.
Go ahead.
So I've been getting, it's the private selection brand from Kroger, which is actually really good blue cheese. I'll just take me like a handful of crumbles, melt it in the microwave. You want to do about 2 big scoops of mayonnaise, and then you want to do a big ass scoop of sour cream. So that's probably like 2 parts mayonnaise to 1 part sour cream, maybe 2.5 parts mayonnaise. 1.5 part. I don't fucking. You want some. The mayonnaise gives you the thickness.
Thank you.
Pour some lemon juice in that, and then shit ton of pepper. add the rest of your crumbles or crumble up your block of blue cheese you got. Stir it vigorously and then let that shit sit for at least like an hour. It's gotta like... my mom made a fantastic French dressing, and I need to get her recipe for that. Grandmother's fudge, that's one of the best things I fucking cook. It's so fucking simple. Bring 2 cups sugar and 1 cup
understood.
Milk to a boil. You want to add in 2 big spoons of cocoa powder. Mom didn't tell me to do this, but I add a couple dashes of vanilla extract. Bring that shit to a boil. You gotta stir it constantly.
I did hear, sorry, a 10.
Stir that shit.
Frank vehicle.
So you gotta get you a measuring cup of water, and then after it's been boiling for a while, you take the spoon and you let some of it drop down in the water. It'll turn into a ball when it's ready. Ball up and float. I don't know what the science is about that shit, but it works. You take it off the heat, you put 2 big scoops of peanut butter in it, and then you stir that shit up vigorously. You can't stop. You can't stop it at all. It'll start to harden, and then you can put it in a... Oh, and you can't do it when it's high humidity. It'll turn back to sugar. So I usually make my grandmother's fudge around Christmas time.
Tight around that building, and it might be well.
Oh shit! We don't get a conclusion. Let me see if I can find out. Maybe he got away. Ends in downtown parking garage. Be the update 45 minutes ago. Pursuit that began in the Gardena area and continued on streets and freeways in West Los Angeles came to an end Thursday in a downtown LA parking garage. Officers were chasing a Chevy Camaro after a report of a stolen vehicle. Details about the theft were not immediately available. The driver of the bright blue car was traveling at high speed. We saw that. The driver entered the 10 freeway. The Camaro was last seen pulling into an underground parking garage with officers in pursuit. 2 people in the car are in custody. So that's all we know. As I said, just updated like 48 minutes ago. You didn't see the animal video earlier, you're going to see it now. Warlord requested it. I'll probably be on tomorrow night. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday. Who knows? There might be a debate. Yes, if any of you are in the Discord, totally hop in the Discord. Good content.
Why are you standing in the kitty bed? Is it because the kitty?
Animal videos and pictures.
Is that it? Oh.
Warlord will keep you up to date on all the news. There's good discussion. Good people in the Discord. The music thread. There's AI art. There's all kinds of fun shit. See, this video gets sweeter and sweeter as it goes along.
Oh my god. My heart. Just yeah, bien. La pizza. Mimi!
Çok ayıp ya, öyle mi yapalım? Why are you standing in the kitty bed? Is it because the kitty is in your bed? Is that it? Oh.
If you're watching on Twitch,
Buddy.
I'm doing something crazy. You're going over to Toad PhD. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. You're gonna get real shocked about what you're getting ready to get like dropped into.